You know, I had an intro written for this essay months in advance. I really did. I had done my due diligence and avoided all of the trailers, at least post-announcement trailer anyway. I avoided all of the leaks, all of the promo materials, and waited like a concerned student eager to see their exam grades until October hit. Then the game came out and I had to scrap the whole original intro because it just didn't fit. Full disclosure, I did pre-order the Ultimate Edition, which meant I got to play chapters 1 and 2 early, and so I got to get slightly ahead of the game on writing this, but boy of boy, do I have a lot of thoughts on this game. What kind of thoughts? Well, you're gonna have to wait and see the specifics as this essay unfolds, but I can give you a general overview of what's gonna be discussed. I'm gonna tell you about the story as I experienced it, the characters, the music, this game's place in the series as a direct sequel, and some other points I'll keep from you for now, so you have some surprises. I hope you're ready for a bizarre multi-timeline mystery, because you're in for one wild-ass ride. We open up on an abandoned building, and it sounds like someone's breaking in. Well, wouldn't you know it, the door opens and she's back again. I am so happy to say that my dearly beloved Max Caulfield is back in the series. She's being followed by new friend Safi, and we're here in this abandoned bowling alley to get some photos, which is nice, but even more nice is that we actually get to take the photos ourselves. Yeah, that's right, this game has an actual camera that lets us take the snapshots ourselves, and it's really cool. I'm glad they let us do it. Only problem is Max's DSLR has the goddamn autofocus on and you can't turn it off. Every time you zoom in, you hear that godforsaken mechanical whine, and I can't believe a professional photographer would have autofocus on. That's like not manually adjusting your white balance or not manually setting your exposure. I mean, come on, brother. This isn't amateur hour. You're a goddamn professional photographer, Max. Act like it. Anyways, sorry. Where was I? Bowling alley B&E photo sesh? Yeah. So, back to the story. Max and new friend Safi are here on a little urban exploration to photograph the decay and get a new photo series out of it. You roam around taking pics of things you find interesting, like this mold that grew in the shape of a face, or a bar, everything left exactly as it was decades ago when it was closed down. It's a really cool concept to think of for an art piece, and of course you need a central image to tie the whole series together. So, what's under that tarp hanging from the ceiling? Well, pull that bitch down and see it's a solar system model, which is pretty cool, but we've got to get a different angle to really make something special. Look around and there's a room overlooking the lanes that would be a pretty good vantage point, so find your way up there and take that photo. Your safe way back down collapses as you go up, which means once you get the photo, it's up to Safi to save you with something she's yet to find. Anyhows, I take a pretty good photo in the game, and my ladder down appears when I'm ready to go. Climb on down, show Safi the cool photos you just took, and watch out! The sky's falling! Safi tackles you out of the way, knocking your camera to the ground, but it does save your ass in the process. The two get up and laugh a bit and decide they're gonna get some booze from the local college bar, the Snapping Turtle. Now, in case you're like me and were wondering about the safety of that camera, it's fine. Against all odds, that boy isn't dead, which is shocking all things considered, but not the most relevant thing here. At the Turtle, Safi and Max get some drinks, and here we meet Amanda, the main bartender and requisite small-town lesbian in this game. She hits on Max, and Max, God bless her, is still as oblivious to flirting as ever, and I'm glad that at her core, she hasn't changed a bit. Anyhows, Safi points out the obvious flirting you just absolutely ignored, but the conversation shifts to this picture you keep in your wallet of this blue-haired chick. You're given a small choice about what your relationship to this cretin in the photo is, and you can say that Chloe was your childhood best friend or high school sweetheart. I don't like how positive either option is, but I will never say high school sweetheart, so childhood bestie it is then. Safi then asks you to open up a bit more and asks what happened to Chloe, given that she must have been pretty important to you if you kept a photo of her in your wallet, and here is where we get our first major choice. We drifted apart or the other option. What's the other option? Well, I'm glad you asked, because have you heard the news that she's dead? No one ever had much nice to say. I think they never liked her anyway. Oh, take her from the hospital bed. Wouldn't it be grand? It ain't exactly what she planned. And wouldn't it be great if she was dead? Oh, dead.
No.
Yeah, that's right, Chloe is still as dead as ever. Goodbye and good riddance. Now, I'd save this for later, but I do want to mention specifically that either way you go, Chloe is gone in the narrative, which feels good, honestly, because this is Max's story, and Chloe doesn't have a place in this narrative outside of being a remnant of a time long gone. Anyhows, Safi says she's sorry, but also tells you to go do normal people shit, like go make friends or become more than friends with Amanda, but whatever you do, go be a normal person and not the closed-off loner artist that you are. But first, you gotta figure out what normal people talk about, because pretty much all you do is work on photos, grade assignments, and sleep. From here, you're set free to roam the bar, talk to some of the people, examine the art, and learn more about Amanda, given that her family runs this bar and she did most of the decorating. There's a lot of interactable stuff here, so just take your time, observe the bar, and when you're ready, run down your list of observations with Amanda, and somehow become friends. Eventually the conversation reaches an end point, and it gives me a choice. Just be friends with Amanda, or be something more. Now, I like Amanda. She's pretty cool, but I needed to meet my other option before I made any rash decisions, which did mean politely shooting Amanda down. Sorry girl, but I gotta know the whole field first. It's nothing personal. Now, what is personal is what comes afterwards. Jesus Christ, I completely fumbled that script. I'm sorry. Anyway, personal, right. So my boy Moses drops by to talk with us and Safi because he's the third one in our trio, and he's my favorite of the two who aren't Max. He's a nerd and a science one at that, kind of like my boy Warren. I miss my boy. Anyway, there's a cool meteor shower tonight, and Moses, being the head of the astronomy department, has to go conduct some experiments and shit, so he invites us to join him at the observatory, and it's time for a faculty stargazing night. Wahoo! Up on the rooftop, we're watching a pretty cool natural phenomenon, but Safi ain't having it. She's being her usual Safi self, which does mean complaining about why she hangs out with science nerds on a freezing-ass winter night. She asks a wacky hypothetical about what you'd do if you knew the world was ending in 24 hours, and what would Max do? It's quite simple, really. It's the same as it ever was. Take photos. Then this rat bastard Safi complains that art has to have an audience, and I'm gonna have an aneurysm because no it doesn't, thank you. Art can be made for the sake of existing even if no one sees it. That's why anyone can be an artist. So no, Safi, an audience isn't required, and you'd know that since you don't let anyone read your damn poetry, so go suck an egg. Anyways, speaking of that poetry, Safi's taken mommy's credit card to go buy some expensive champagne for the group to celebrate something. What that something is, we don't know. But Moses has a plan to figure that shit out, even if, quote, once we go down this road, we can never go back. Or whatever the hell he's saying. He then asks if you're truly ready, and he gives you a bottle cap? This is an ongoing game between him and Safi, where whoever holds the cap has to do whatever the other one says, within reason, which means you've got to figure out how to sneakily get that cap into her hands. I chose the best course of action, and I successfully got the cap into Safi's hands, which means she's got to spill the beans about what she's all in a hot fuss over. Turns out that, while nothing is finalized, her poetry book is getting published. Wow, great job, proud of you. We celebrate the news, watch some cool meteor stuff, and then Safi has to go return some videotapes, so she heads down out in a rush, telling us she'll talk later, which is fine with me. Max decides that a night like this is a great time to get a cool shot of the moon overlooking campus. We take our photo, and oh boy do we get hit with a migraine the likes of which Max hasn't experienced since high school, back when she still had her powers to be kind, rewind. We decide that it might be time to hang up the camera for the night, so Max heads down and out. We pause a moment to turn on some music, and you know how some things will never
change?
This is one of those times because we're back to a purely indie soundtrack, because with Max, old habits die hard. Eventually, you're ready to carry on home. But wait, there's an owl up on the statue, and there's a photo to be had here since this wise-ass mystical bird is holding still. So take the photo and, oh dear God, we're on the floor again. Wake up! Grab a bush and put it... Wait, wrong art material. Sorry. Max has another migraine attack, and something is majorly wrong in the rotten air tonight. We head over toward the overlook, and when we're there, let's just say that Chloe's death is nothing by comparison. Safi is dead. Shot. But there's no evidence of anything. Moses finds you because of reasons I can't recall, and we're off to a title card. It's been 2 days and Max is in full-on depression mode. She stopped replying to any and everyone, so given that you previously had plans with Amanda to just hang out, in my case, she decides it's time to commit a wellness check and she'll be over soon. Max panics and starts speed cleaning to turn the depression pit into a depression home fit for a real artist. I took a lot of time to just dick around and see the little details of the game, and I'm glad I did, just because there's so many little things to see. Example, the Max Caulfield photo wall is back, even if it includes the one goddamn photo of Chloe flipping off the camera. Of course, Max has a box of Arcadia Bay memories, which does include my dearly beloved Jane Doe shirt. But most interesting to me is a CD Max has on the top of her CD stack, and it's Pisshead! Now, I never mention Skip anytime I talk about Before the Storm, because if you thought Steph was inconsequential, this guy was so inconsequential I never needed to mention him. But I do kinda love Skip. Anyway, Skip's whole thing in that game was that he really just wanted to be a rock musician, and in the background he found some mild success with his band Pisshead. Now, I guess he's successfully got a couple of deals and is still out there cooking to this day, and God bless him. Anyway, take care of business and Amanda's at the door. Amanda's here with some food for you, and some advice that helps Max realize that she's gotta get back out into the real world and carry on! As much as I'm glossing over it, there's some good character stuff, a dirty joke I'm either proud I guessed before they said it, or sad that I thought the exact same thing. I couldn't really tell you which. I mean, I even had a really stupid bit in my notes about how when you take a Polaroid portrait of Amanda, she makes a joke about fees, and it's a lead up to Max saying that we'll call it pro bono, which of course set me off about a certain legal drama I can never cover here because I have nothing new to say that hasn't already been said by someone else. But the point is, in my notes I went and spoiled it all by saying something stupid. Anyways, Max takes her instant camera, and it'll be with us for the rest of the game. The old classic Polaroid one-step, replacing the yellow Polaroid S600 Max had at the start of the original game. Yes, I figured out what that camera was in the original game on my own. Don't worry about it. Max is off to go find Moses because she's gotta be a person, right? That and there may be something strange abound. However, we'll get to that because not only do we gotta talk to Moses, but we've also got a meeting with Yasmin, the head of the university and mother of the recently deceased. For now, though, we're off to explore Caledon University, and man, if I thought True Colors' setting was pretty, this campus is downright gorgeous. I mean, seriously, I know it's the idyllic East Coast college, but like the snow and architecture looks so goddamn pretty. Like, no wonder you end up here as a photographer. And there I go, getting off course again. We've got a couple of objectives here, nothing too major. Just go meet up with Yasmin, maybe stopping along the way to help a student like Reggie solve an Abraxas puzzle box. Abraxas being some college org shit, I don't know, man. Taking photos and doing max shit. TM. We're in the administration building waiting for our meeting with Yasmin, and here we get to meet our new boy, and boy was I glad I waited to meet the other option in the game, because Yasmin's secretary Vin's interactions are a lot of fun, and he's got a lot of charm, and to be blunt and cut to the chase, bro is a freak, but like in a good way, and while he's a lot of fun, there's just enough sadness and madness behind those eyes that I'm all in. I'm sorry, Amanda, but the dweeb with a certain sadness in his eyes speaks to me so much more than you ever could. Anyways, setting aside the heavy flirting that he and Max do, Yasmin is in a meeting, so you've got to kill some time, which means helping out a professor you hear loudly bitching in the library, or maybe helping Vin retrieve a package from the administration building's mailroom so he'll owe you a favor. Or because, you know, he's kinda hot and I'm definitely interested. But that's besides the point. I deliver the package and then peek into the library to help out Professor Gwyn, an English prof who needs a book out of the locked case. And since we're apparently known for B&E, she asks if we could jimmy the lock and get the book she wants out of the case. Oblige her request, talk a little, and look at the time, we've gotta go. Enter Yasmin's office, and she's got a strange question to ask us about Safi's untimely demise. See, she and Safi never exactly exactly saw eye to eye, so to speak. Safi definitely kept a lot of things from her mother, and as such, Yasmin has to ask if Safi's death was self-inflicted, even if only to rule out the possibility in her own head. You're given a choice, and I said there wasn't a chance because I never got that kind of vibe from her. But that's something we're not qualified to talk about because we never really knew Safi as well as maybe we should have. Well, let's not stew on that. We've got to go meet with Moses in the Fine Arts Building Cafe. But on our way there, we overhear Professor Gwyn having a real interesting conversation, and we're back on our bullshit snooping around and whatnot when suddenly Gwyn storms off to her office, and before we carry on, this rat bastard Loretta shows up. See, Loretta is a journalism student, which already makes her insufferable, but she's also a true crime kind of girl, and you know what that means. She's a terribly insensitive bitch, and she's trying to interview you about the hottest true crime incident that happened right in our backyard, Safi. I immediately shut her shit down, and she whips out the tape recorder, or whatever the lame-ass modern equivalent is called, and she's now threatening to tell Gwyn, even though I admitted to nothing. If you've seen the other essays I've done on this series, then you'll know that we don't negotiate with terrorists, so I shoot that shit down and call her bluff. Weirdly, Loretta is a little rat, and she marches over to Gwyn's office, knocks on the door, and snitches on you. What a dickbag, huh? But yeah, Gwyn tells her to piss off and finish the revisions that Loretta owes her before she turns her attention back to us. Here, we're at an impasse, because there's no response that'll make Gwyn think you're anything other than a loser who needs to mind her own business. Now, to be fair, Gwyn's phone call was incredibly strange, talking about police involvement and other weird-ass things that I don't remember. I mean, my notes literally just say exactly, "Hold up, sus prof Gwyn call?" And I'm not sure what I was getting at in specific, but I do remember Gwyn saying something to the effect of "stay out of my way," which raises a lot of questions, but hey, we gotta go see Moses and talk things over a bit. Poor guy is so out of it, he never picked up the hot chocolate he ordered, so do him the favor and bring it to him before you talk about what happened that fateful night. In my notes here, I said that this series has a thing for tormenting the leading males, because Moses here is going through the post-bestie death emotional ringer like they did with Ryan and True Colors, and I'm sensing a pattern emerging, but that's a different subject for a different day. Anyways, you have a conversation trying to comfort each other, and it's nice, but we've got some shit to do, like returning videotapes or something, so we're off to carry on about our day. Head outside and see that old Lucas Colmenero is lecturing out on the quad in Safi's memory or some shit, even though they notoriously never got along, and also he's just self-promoing the whole time. Max tries to see the best in people and says something about how maybe he's changed, like he got visited by 3 ghosts one night, a la that Charles Dickens shit. But Moses drops the banger line, quote, "That's at least a 6-ghost 2-night job," which is incredibly funny, albeit obvious. Anyways, Moses has to bounce, and then we're off to go home, when suddenly we hear Moses? But Moses isn't anywhere around here, so because divine inspiration strikes us, we stick our hand out and now we can see a different reality, and now we've got a brand new power set to use. Timelines! So now we can peek into this other reality, which is cool, but we're gonna have to follow this timeline's Moses around because apparently he's gonna talk with Safi or something, commence an annoying trailing mission, and find that in this other reality, Safi is still alive. If only we could cross over to the other side. And funny, you should mention that because stick out both hands, make a ripping motion, and fall through into the other reality and into the chapter end. Stat screen is back, and now I've made my one contractually obligated mention of it, so I'll never mention it again. Chapters 2 starts with us snapping back to reality in the turtle while having lunch with Safi and Yasmin. Safi looks at us as though we're going insane or on drugs. I said I wish I was, but no. Anyhows, this is where we learn that Safi got a publishing deal. Wow, yippee! Cue the power shenanigans and a nosebleed that sends us off to the bathrooms. I do want to say that I'm kind of glad the drawbacks are back again. Something about that little detail sticks out to me as a really interesting concept, but it does annoy me that they really only seem to give Max and Alex the major drawbacks. Here's looking at you, little shit from Life is Strange 2, but that's not too awful important. We go to the bathroom, and wouldn't you know it, there's a rift for us to rip through and back to our reality. but not for long because we need to hit up the living Safi timelines Amanda to get a sense of whether or not we're back on our timey-wimey bullshit. But thanks to the fact that we asked Amanda to hang out 2 days ago across both realities, it means that the death was the splitting point into this timeline multiversal
chicanery.
Sorry, if I'm fumbling a lot of this, it's because it's currently 1:32 a.m. EST, and I've had a very long day. Anyway, back to the land of the living, rejoin Safi and her momther as they're getting ready to head on out. We find out that somebody smashed Safi's windshield with a cow skull that just so happens to be the same one from the Turtles' walls. Safi complains about them not having picked a fight with a Volvo, which I'm only mentioning because it's funny and is absolutely necessary car slander that I'm directing at a friend of mine. You know who you are if you're watching this. I know you're not. Anyways, we're off to investigate the cow, and this means we're gonna do some timeline jumping to figure out who done it. After Max does the jump, I get a reminder that she's still the same character as before because she still says something stupid like oofa doofa after warping around. Ah, Max, don't change for you. Don't change a thing for me. And there's another banger reference that only 2 of my viewers are gonna get. Anyways, I went on a little detour to help some guy not get senior assassinated, but then I was back to investigating the cow skull. We're a little too short to reach the skull. She just like me. So we're gonna pretty quickly discover that we can carry objects between timelines without many problems. So find a stepladder, since I never knew my real ladder. F***ing kill me now. Why did I write that? What the hell is wrong with me? And take a peek at the skull. Turns out this bad boy was a gift from Lucas, and we're still as confused as ever. Sit down, take a look at our notes. Max's notes, not mine. Mine are a mess of swears, reactions, and jokes that may or may not have made it into this. And set out to figure out the mystery of Safi's murder drama. Our 2 leads, Lucas and Abraxas. So let's head to campus and solve this shit. Well, it's time to hunt down our targets and ask some questions, just like in high school. As we head to enter our buildings, we get a cat jump scare. Ah! That definitely peaked the audio. I'm so sorry. Yeah, whatever. At least only if you have the special extra cat content anyways. I do have this content, so it'll weasel its way into this when relevant, but back to the main focus here. Enter the fab and head in to hit up Lucas and Gwen before we head back out to deal with Vin. Gwen's up first, and she's pissed to say the least, what with the security dude essentially forcing her out of her office and all that. So wait it out and begin our little snoop sesh, since these people haven't heard of closing the goddamn door. In the office, there's all sorts of fun things, like our obligatory firewalk poster, and lots of plants, but more importantly, I mean, also, we get a convenient rift to be able to enter the office, especially since Dead World's Gwen actually knows how to close the door and lock it. In the Dead World, you can water a plant that really needs it, which reminds me of Lisa. You know, Lisa, the plant in Max's dorm that you have to water every other day in order to keep alive. Yeah, that one. Bet you didn't remember that shit, but I do. Anyways, the emails are actually really important because it turns out that Gwen had Safi's book deal murdered, so print out the emails for evidence and then jump back to the living world to leave no trace that you were in that office. Probably a small detail that the game doesn't register, but I do because I'm far too paranoid to not do it like this. And now, it's Lucas time! This world's Lucas is a strange guy, dealing with a bunch of other things, most notably a phone call with bitch ex-wife about his son and how she's trying to force him out of the boy's life unjustly. He locks his briefcase before he goes, which really dampens our plans to snoop around, but thankfully there's 2 Lucases, which means 2 keys. Talk to the Dead World Lucas, learn about him and his son, get a free book, because even if you're not interested in anything this guy has done, a free book is still a free book. He's prepping for some kind of conference. He foolishly leaves a key in his briefcase, and since he's one vanity-driven rat bastard, you can graffiti a cardboard cutout of him and he'll lose his shit and leave his shit unattended. Swipe the key, and with a rip and a jump, open up the Living World Lucas's case to find out that he's getting a restraining order against Safi? What in the goddamn? He comes back at the least least opportune time to see you taking a pic of the restraining order to send to Safi. And he begs you to not send it to her and at the very least hear him out. Hear him out and realize that this is not your place to get involved because this involves his son Robbie, and why Lucas stormed off so pissed when bitch ex-wife called. His boy told her that daddy said a lot of heinous shit that he, being Robbie, was the reason for the divorce, and that's apparently the least screwed up thing that he said. He believes that this was Safi trying to get back at him for something, but I kinda don't care since you don't involve an innocent child into whatever personal beef you have with someone. If that kid is not in any danger, don't bring him into it. It's just that simple. Anyhows, you've got the choice to send the pic to Safi or delete it, and I delete it because I'm not a monster, and this is clearly a matter that I need to stay out of. Now it's time to pester Vin, and both versions are in very different spots. One is in his usual admin spot, and the other is outside looking for his phone. The Dead World Vin inside is doing Vin stuff, like drinking on the job. Hell yeah, brother. And doing tarot card readings. If that's your bag, brother. And talking to him, you can flirt heavily and even join him for the day drinking sesh. Hell yeah, brother.
How many of those do you have?
Ooh, just don't check the recycling.
The banter with him is fun, and I really like this interaction. Max opens up a little, and the flirting is a good time, and he's sweet.
A little damp. Occasionally torrential.
What did you do when you weren't drinking on the train tracks?
Took pictures mostly.
And?
Swear, I'm not that interesting.
I don't believe you.
I mean, he's able to register that Max has the same sadness and madness behind her eyes that he does, and he's all in. I really like Vin, alright? He's the boy, and I feel like so many people miss this interaction because they're only here for gay, or just not paying attention to the little things. But I notice, and that's what I play these games for. Anyways, Living World Vin lost his phone, and we're gonna help him find it via our amazing powers of observation. But not before we get more flirting done with Vin. I'm gonna say it. Bro manages to pull off what otherwise be an incredibly annoying and dickwad asshat Chloe type behavior by being sassy as hell, and I kinda love it. I won't lie, but that's not relevant. We have to go find his missing patience in order to get more info out of him, which means talking to my least favorite character in the game, Diamond. In concept, I should like this character. She's a film major type, but I don't like her personality, and there's another more glaring issue I'll touch on later when it becomes relevant. Anyways, her whole mission in this game is to be the leader of Abraxas and usurp Vin. But I really don't care, I'm sorry. Tell him that Diamond doesn't have his shit, he's impressed that you figured it out with no clues whatsoever.
So, about my question.
I'm free Tuesday after 7, and I'm partial to a Japanese single malt.
That's whiskey?
Yes, but damn, do I have so much to teach you. So your place or mine?
Chat more and realize that he knows more than he's letting on about Safi's windshield. Very interesting. So, head on inside back to Dead World Vin, and he's found his phone. That's pretty cool. But uh-oh, he forgore his own passcode. What a silly goober. I would also like to make a note of when you're starting that conversation about getting the phone, you lead in with,
Hey, Ben? Can I ask for something kind of weird?
and when I tell you his response stopped me dead in my tracks, I mean it. I was not emotionally prepared for Vin to immediately reply with,
I don't do foot stuff.
Damn. Well, there goes my Friday night.
because Jesus Christ, that's such a dumb line, but it's a lot of fun. Anyways, you have a few ways of solving this, like for example, if you played Mailman earlier in the game, you could cash in your favor from Dead World Vin and skip the whole process, or you can crack the code yourself because it's a lot more fun that way. Doesn't matter how you get in, you open the phone, snoop around, and find a picture or a photo taken after Safi and Vin did it. And by it, well, let's just say, Funky Town shenanigans. Well, all 3 of our leads feel like we've hit just about 7 more walls in this investigation, so we're gonna go home. At least until we see Reggie having a panic attack like he's Tony Soprano or something.
How about that prick's face when he saw the gat?
Help the guy calm down, and he'll reveal that he went up to the crime scene at the Overlook and saw some weird shit was going down. Like, he saw the other timeline version of himself up there, which means we're gonna head up there ourselves since it's the closest thing we have to a lead. Use some timeline jumpery to bypass a downed sculpture and end up at the Overlook in the living world, where on our way to the rift to reach the crime scene, we get stopped by Professor Gwen. She's up here smoking a joint, and unlike the previous stoner lesbian Max was acquainted with, she offers you a hit. I decline because my lungs are screwed up enough as it is, thank you very much. And then she launches into some monologue about constantly fighting to be, fighting to prove who you are, all that stuff that's associated with the trans experience that I have 0 qualifications to commentate on. Anyway, it's a lot of character building stuff, and that's nice, but it doesn't exactly clarify anything we need to know in regards to Safi or the book being killed, but we've got a mystery afoot. See, Gwen is getting fired by the school for allegedly selling illegal substances to her students, and the board gave her a flash drive to see this so-called incriminating evidence for herself. So considering the dialogue from earlier, Gwen's tired of fighting and she plans to just burn the drive without looking at it. And we're given a choice. Save the drive or watch it burn. I immediately took the drive for myself like a greedy little loot goblin. Gwen chastises me, but I promise this is for her own good later on. She'll piss off mad as hell, but I don't care. I've got a mystery to solve, and this is evidence. Anyways, we've got to investigate whatever the hell Reggie saw, and then, oh god damn it, Loretta is here asking about what Reggie told you. Then she sees the multiversal bullshit too, and this location gets more and more confusing by the minute. Thankfully, we've got no more today, and Moses needs our help, kinda nowish. Head up to the observatory, and we've got a quick little window to talk with Moses because he's about to get investigated by the police. Why? His ass stole Safi's camera from the crime scene, primarily because it has the last photo the trio took together. Now, the problem is we've got to get this camera out of here without the detective intervening, and well, he's here now. This is Detective Alderman, and this guy, the actor, is putting up one hell of a performance, because this dude is intimidating as all hell, and I kinda love it. But that's besides the point. We get a very long and extended puzzle sequence that's a lot of fun, especially because it really utilizes the timeline jumping to its fullest potential, and it is a lot of fun. We're using Living World Moses as a springboard since Dead World Moses is getting questioned, and it's really neat to see the similarities between both versions of the guy. I mean, the setups and payoffs for this are really interesting, but I won't spoil that here. We managed to get the camera, and things get a little tense, and the detective is putting some pieces together and really is trying to intimidate us. He tries to get us to fold when he offers us his business card, but I refuse, and he's getting real mad about it, but in a very calm and truly unsettling way that I think is a genuinely fantastic performance. Anyways, after this adventure that unlocked a special power that allows us to swap objects between timelines, it's time to go home, investigate the camera, and see what's going on. Back at home, we've got a quick little detour because there's a weird noise at the back door of the house. And who could it be now? Well, it's a silly little orange cat. I named this little guy Iris, mostly since I couldn't name this little bastard Garfield. Missed opportunity, to be perfectly honest. And we bring this little guy out of the cold and into a home. Set up a little bedding thing, make some food, and make sure you keep the bathroom door closed. And maybe you'll even be able to snap some photos of this legendary beast. Anyhows, the digitization of the photos is done now, so head on down to your dark room and let's see the damage, and more importantly, if stealing this camera was worth it. Well, we see a couple of goofy little photos, and of course the last photo we took up on the roof a few days ago. And it was nice to see, but Moses points out there's one photo left. That's strange. But wait, there's something really weird and off-putting about its existence. We click to the last photo, and what in the goddamn? It turns out the last photo Safi ever took was of Max pointing a gun at her, thus implying that we killed her? This is a Silent Hill 2 James Sunderland killed his wife ass twist, and I am here for it. It's so cool. Oh my God. Anyways, Moses is far more normal about this than I am, and he just books it out of there. Also, Max is now lost and lonely again, and the chapter ends. Well, Max is back to square one now, i.e. the depression nap. Things did not go well last night, and no one is going to believe you, so all you can really do is examine the evidence while we're still in the dark room. Here we see the evidence of Gwen is rather strange considering she's spiking the camera the whole time and it's hidden, so unless she knew it was there, this is weird. However, this reveals nothing to us, and the book reveals nothing, the photo of the cow's skull reveals nothing, and the picture of us reveals, you guessed it, absolutely nothing, other than I apparently wore the default outfit, which I would never do because I'm all about that Moogle coat, baby. In all honesty, I want that Moogle hat. Like, it kinda goes hard as hell, but that's a different problem for a different day. For now, though, Max could really use some coffee, so we head upstairs with the photo to get some energy and maybe think things through a bit better. Then there's a knock at the door and it's Alderman.
Oh God, we've got incriminating evidence up here, even though we didn't do it.
He barges in, ready to ask some
Personal questions.
and his perception skill is high enough to notice the picture of you on the counter, and it's starting to look mighty Jover for us. As a whole, this encounter is genuinely really creepy and so well done. Like, Alderman's performance, again, is just so deeply menacing, and I love it. He's maybe the best side character here on the acting front. Alderman leaves, we panic a lot, but when we look at the photo of us, all of a sudden we get a little ping in the back of our head, and wouldn't you know it, our latent time travel powers are still with us because we still have focus, baby. That's right, Max Mario 64's her ass back to the past when Safi took the picture, and oh hey, look, the storm is back. Or if you're like me, when I took notes on this game, direct quote,
Okay, who cares? God's dick is back, baby.
and in case you're wondering what that means, this comes from when I played the original Life is Strange with a friend of mine. He called the storm God's dick, and it's been stuck with me ever since. On the off chance that particular friend of mine is seeing this, hey boss, I'm thinking. That one's for you, buddy. Anyways, tangents and call-outs aside, this nightmare photo jump makes no sense, but it's such a cool scene in practice because it still leaves so many unanswered questions. But we got a new lead because Safi mentions this girl named Maya. You try to press her on this, but Safia Montenegro tells you to just go shoot her, nailed her to the cross, and let her be reborn, and all that good Voss shit. You don't get to shoot her because your powers fade, and you're on the floor with one hell of a nosebleed. Get up, try to refocus, and then realize you're not strong enough to make that happen. Max realizes that she's got to try and tell Moses everything, so what better place to go than the crime scene itself? Hit the road to nowhere, go to the Overlook, and sit on a bench until Moses pops up so you can explain everything to him. He shows up, makes sure to tell us that people know where he is in case he goes missing, and you just dump all of your physics-defying powers onto him. He's skeptic as all hell, but he's willing to play ball. You'll just have to prove your time jumping, so as he watches, you rip yourself into the other reality, and using your ability to see and hear one timeline while in the other, listen as he freaks out over you just disappearing right before his very eyes. Jump over, and he's absolutely closer to believing you now, but you've still got to prove it to him. Just like you had to prove Rewind's existence to that absolute troglodyte all those years ago. You know who I'm referring to. Well, to prove it to him this time, it's just a jump to the left, a pause to listen in, a jump to the right, and repeating what Moses did to prove you're a goddamn superhero, baby. Moses immediately starts theorizing, but he hands you the bottle cap that Safi somehow managed to slip back to him that night, and tells you that to hand. Oh my god, I'm sorry. I'm fumbling hard. It's 1:57 a.m. You know how it be, baby. Anyway, let's just retake that whole part. Moses immediately starts theorizing, but he hands you the bottle cap that Safi somehow managed to slip back to him that night and tells you to hand it to Living World Safi when you get the chance. You promise to relay the message to her, and it's time to trauma dump about Rewind, baby. That's right, we get an explicit mention of Rewind, explore the philosophical ramifications of time travel through the eyes of someone who's done it, but then then shit gets weird because Alderman is here, but he's in the past, and since the Overlook is an anomalous location, it means Moses can see him too. Then the other Alderman appears, and apparently since both versions, past and present, can see each other, he goes to investigate, he puts a hand on his shoulders, and literally deletes himself from existence. This action has the insane consequence of now he just never existed, like ever. There's no record of him having been, and that's genuinely so cool. I tried to save him because I'm a good person. Moses intervenes because it's either Alderman destroys himself or you go down with him, and it is what it is. We've got a new mission though. With Moses on our side, we're gonna figure out what the hell actually happened to Safi by talking to Gwen. But more than that, maybe we'll get an answer on who the hell Maya was. Welcome back to the Fab. Hope you didn't miss it too much. We're here to pester Gwen for more information, but there's always more to do. Like help some kid pass the class of a professor that clearly hates him, just like you did for Warren all those years ago. I still miss my boy, in case you were wondering. Anyhows, the password for the computer to input the grade in is 1223.
8 after Magna Carta, as if I could ever make such a mistake. Never. Never. I just couldn't prove it.
I suppose I can only delay the inevitable for so long, though. So talk to Gwen, get chastised for our innate ability to learn shit we're not supposed to, but she's willing to compromise.
Want to compromise? How's this? I jacked off in a tissue. 20 years in the camp. I jacked off in a tissue. I wanted my gut. I compromised. I jacked off in a tissue. I wanted a fuck tissue, but I compromised. I jacked off in a tissue. 20 years I jacked off in a tissue in the camp, but I compromised. I jacked off in a
You talk about Safi's book, why she killed it, and all that shit, but our big takeaway was that Gwen killed the book due to, quote, incendiary content in it, which is not the right word to use there. That would be inflammatory. Why would it be? Well, we're back to that damn Maya Okada again. And and we learned she ended her own life, which was what Safi's whole book was about. Gwen shows remorse for what happened, but
91.5 WDNC. We do not care.
we ask for the manuscript, but she won't budge. So it's time to do our time warp again and steal a copy from other Gwen's desk, and bada bing bada boom, we're off to the races. Take a quick read of the poems. They're not my cup of tea, but poetry never has been my thing, so whatever, right? Since we learned a bit about Maya, now we've got to hear what Yasmin has to say on the matter, just to try and understand some stuff about Maya and Safi. Talk to your boss, get through the pleasantries, and realize that she's covering up something about the reality of her daughter and this Maya chick. I chose to not press her on it, just to get the recon and see what she's trying to spin. This was an interesting choice, all things considered, and her little mention of a statement Vin made was enough to plant the seeds of doubt in me on whether or not he was the boy, or if I should have gone with Amanda all along. But we'll touch on this later. Yasmin has a favor to ask from us, and it's to keep an eye on Safi for her, so grit your teeth and hope for the best. We contemplate a little, and we're off to go hunt down the boy to find out what the hell happened. Moses gives us the scoop that he gave a very generic corporate response that definitely doesn't feel like something he'd say, so let's go straight to the source. Or we would if Amanda wasn't here for whatever reason to delay us. She calls us sport, and she doesn't even have the dignity to call us old sport like Gay Jatsby, the titular Drake Jatsby. She's acting a little weird, especially considering she would never be on campus for the crap campus coffee, but she asks us what we're doing talking to the boss. This is deeply weird and unsettling, so we're gonna give her some non-responses and hope for the best. I've got a little more to say about this scene, but it's because there's something that makes this conversation more interesting in retrospect, so just keep this in the back of your mind, okay? Anyway, we managed to get the hell out of there, and I'm off to admin. In the library, watch Vin and Diamond argue about Abraxas leadership shit. He's running off. We try to ask him about Maya. He can't handle this unintentional tag team from his own personal hell, so we're gonna have to work with Diamond and multiversal bullshit. I'm gonna be honest with you. Diamond is kind of a dickbag, so I don't want to work with her, but I'm left with no choices. First, though, we need to get some recon shit, so give Diamond some info about the statement Yasmin made Vin give, jump realities, and spy from across the veil. Here we watch Diamond. We watch Diamond make herself into the biggest piece of shit as we learn why Vin did what he did. He did it all because Yasmin offered him the job as her assistant if he made the statement. And for a guy from a poor family with zero prospects, a chance at a job with real benefits sounded appealing, even if it meant betraying the memory of your friend. The thing is, he regrets what he did, and it eats away at him every day. Diamond tries to backpedal, but it's too late now. He's dropping out of the Abraxas president race, and it's entirely to teach her a lesson about sacrifice and winner-takes-all sort of shit. And I'm thinking about that legal drama again, because this is just like The Thing with the protagonist and his brother. If you've seen the show, you know what I mean. I'm intentionally being vague with that comparison, because the less you know about that show, the better.
Call Saul.
Anyhow, talk to Living World Vin and try to learn more from my favorite bad boy. This guy just can't catch a break today, so I understand the hostility on his part, but he'll tell us we gotta ask Lucas and bluntly states Lucas has Maya's blood on his hands, so to speak. We ask about the cow skull, but that's apparently too far without trading a secret of our own. So let's dump some shit on him to bargain. You could call in your favor. Tell him you know about him and Safi banging, the restraining order, or Gwen being framed, so take your pick. I originally chose the him and Safi thing because it's funny, and he responds with how secrets of his own aren't that interesting as leverage. So I used explore mode to quickly summarize what happened. I said the restraining order just for fun. He's impressed that Lucas isn't as dumb as he thought he was. We get the fact that the cow skull was Vin's work regardless, so that's kind of fun. He did it out of love or to direct Safi's rage towards a deserving target instead of Gwen, and that's all we're getting out of him. He tells us to be respectful to Maya as we go digging through everything, and God bless him. We're then off to pay Lucas a visit in his office and see what the hell is up with him, Safi, and Maya. He's glad you're here because he just got a movie deal for his book. Wow. We look at some of the other things, mostly the temporary restraining order he has, and he's glad that he has it, and says thanks for not sending Safi the thing, so all is well. He turns control of the conversation over to you, and so after I go through the pleasantries with him, I ask about Maya. He's less than thrilled about this, but he's avoidant no matter how you play it, so you're gonna jump realities and thank God that Lucas never locks his damn door. Examine his office and find something real special in a novelty gold typewriter and discover Maya's manuscripts. What in the goddamn? And the writing is really familiar. Oh no, don't tell me that Lucas is a filthy plagiarist. Oh good heavens, I cannot believe this. I can't believe I helped a plagiarist. Oh dear God, my reputation in academia is in shambles. We immediately storm off to find Safi, and she looks less than amused with us. She's pissed as all hell, won't listen to us, and I'm seeing flashes of Chloe again. She gives us a chance to give her a reason, and between the options of I can't tell you and I'm trying to help you, I'm gonna say I am trying to break your heart. Safi doesn't care or believe this shit and pisses off forever, just like Chloe if you kept her sorry ass alive. Well, that was a bust. So let's go drown our sorrows with some booze at the Turtle, eh? Contemplate how lonely life is, and eventually get up and talk to the local wildlife. Talk to Amanda, get something to drink, realize that Living World Amanda would have said old sport.
Like gay Gatsby. See? I told you that was relevant.
And then get some booze. I want to just mope in peace, but the look in Amanda's eyes and the distant sound of a U-Haul says that I'm not going to get such luxury. She's collecting on the hangout sesh we promised her, so she offers us an AirPod and we're going to pretend go to a show. We're off on a choose-your-own-adventure concert, and this culminates in the lead singer of the band dying in a crowd surf gone wrong, which is incredibly funny, and I'm so glad I let it happen. Also, this fake concert is at Amanda's buddy's Eric's house, and all I can think about is how something eerily similar happened to my buddy Eric. The show's done, the imaginary show ends, and that was kind of fun, I won't lie. I removed the AirPod, talk a little more with Amanda, explain some of the weird shit that's been happening, and I think I can see where the kiss the girl moment comes into play, but I didn't express an interest in her, so I got nothing. Yeehaw! Anyways, I'm gonna let her linger with that, and I'm off to visit my boy, Vin. He's drinking off in the dead world, and I don't blame him. We pull up next to him,
Probably too
awkwardly
often.
flirt. God bless you, Max Caulfield, still as cringy and dorky as ever. He asks us to
Join me?
take a glass and bitch about life, and Vin's such a good guy, even though he's definitely the most mentally screwed up of any guy in the series by a mile. Anyhows, this good bad boy, bad good boy, good bad bad good boy, cowboy boy b-boy, whatever the hell he is a really sweet guy, and I'm all in on this character. I kind of love him so much. Like, he talks about how he had some delusions about him and Safi, the hope for all that might have been that filled him with a hope to wish impossible things, all that morose and mopey good stuff that I adore. He then asked,
Any other deep, dark secrets you've disinterred from my past?
I know what happened to Maya.
Christ, Max! I was joking.
I am so in love with this scene. We get more stuff that fills in his character, and I really like all of this. It makes so much sense, and he's so great. They get a little existential about past regrets, and these two were made for each other. Oh my god. The shared sadness and madness between these two is phenomenal. Anyways, he apologizes for ruining the vibes and pours both of us another glass, and we're off to the fun part. Amanda drops in on us, probably mad as hell over me picking Vin over her, but I digress. We then launch into what we find attractive, which evolves into something special, but before we get to that, I need to say that Vin is a freak, and I am so here for it. We love a bi-king love interest in these games. Anyways, he tells a story of how Moses explained the double slit experiment to him and how it was weirdly hot, and then asks us the age-old question.
Moses, smash or pass?
That's right. We're playing Smash or Pass, and I cannot believe that this is in this game, but I'm here for it. I'm here for a lot of things, if you haven't gathered by now. Anyways, Moses, smash.
Okay, fine. I admit it. My friend Moses is an extremely handsome man.
Come on, Vin, hit me. Who else you got?
Dr. Hunter, for instance. Interested?
Pass, married. Also, she hates me.
Professor Colmenero.
No. He sucks.
Does he now?
You suck.
Hey, I'm just trying to think of people we both know. Lucas, smash or pass?
I mean, he's a filthy plagiarist, but like, he's kinda hot, so, you know.
Unfortunately, smash.
Vin says it's the beard, isn't it? Our two types can't resist a beard. And all I'll say is no comment. Anyway, it's our turn to ask, and we drop
Yasmin.
Now that's just unfair.
Why?
Because then I'd have to admit just how hot I find authority figures.
I would not have pegged you for the type.
Oh, yeah. What would you peg me for? I'm sorry. I couldn't just let it lie there.
He then asked us about Reggie. Max says her students are off limits because she's a professional, which then leaves us with one last option.
Well, as I am 1, at Caledon, and 2, not one of your students, which appear to be your 2 standards.
Come on.
So, what about me, Miss Caulfield? Where do I fall on the binary?
And do you even have to ask me what I picked? Think, viewer, think.
Whatever, I'm drunk.
Wow. Damn. Good answer.
Thanks, Vin.
Oh.
I really... just thanks.
I kiss the boy, and this scene is a lot of fun. I love how just simple and stupid it is. He asks,
Do you have to go?
Would you be willing to believe I need to go save the world?
And his response seals the deal that he's one of the best love interests in the series.
Not as a general rule. But who knows with you, Max Caulfield? Take it easy, Max.
I am so deeply into these characters. But with that out of the way, we're off to the living world to try and talk to Safi, but also go home. At home in the land of the living Safi, something is wrong. Very wrong. The door glass has been broken and the house is unlocked, and it sounds like someone's in the basement. Oh, good heavens! Well, there's plenty of options here. Go in, guns blazing, taking our time and scouting out some evidence, or delaying the inevitable. You could enter the basement when suddenly, cat jump scare! That's right, Iris is atop the fridge, high above the chaos that swept through the house looking for something. Take a picture if you're so inclined and carry on to corner that home invader. Open the door, head down the stairs, and come face to face with the man who sold the world. Shit, I mean, you. I'll tell ya, this scene where you come face to face with Imposter Max goes so hard. Max is confused, other Max is also confused, but Imposter Max books it for the stairs and you go running out after her, desperate to understand what the hell is happening. So into the woods for a multiversal chase. Squeeze through a gap and emerge on the other side near an abandoned railroad bridge or something next to a big old lake that's frozen over. You find a time rift, rip yourself through, and find yourself living in a shotgun shack. Other Max spots you, makes a run for it, but stops because she's run out of ground. You try to pry any information from yourself, but you're not budging. You do realize that other Max isn't quite sounding right in word choices, but there's no time for that now. One thing leads to another, and you're on the frozen lake. One thing leads to another, and I don't know why Max is surprised when a crack in the ice forms under her feet. Other Max slips out of her depth and out of her mind, with fear flowing out behind her as she claws thin ice. You make a run to save her, even if it means touching yourself and potentially erasing your own ass from existence forever. Pull yourself out and watch as the thin ice continues to crack. The whole lake is cracking, so it's time to save yourself by taking the ice lake from your reality and switching it with this one to buy yourself some time to escape. It's a really cool visual, and it turns out that this Imposter Max was actually Safi the whole time. And that's how the episode ends, so all I can say is... After this reveal, we're back home and it's time to figure out what the hell is up with Safi, and more importantly, what she was looking for. But before we do that, change into some dry clothes, make sure Iris is doing alright, and all of that good stuff. I mostly cared about petting the cat, but you can only delay the inevitable by sitting in front of the fireplace contemplating for so long. So let's talk and break down the mystery that is Safi. We try to ask our questions first, but this interrupting rat bastard has different plans. And this character is like, Chloe alarm is blaring. But maybe it's a false alarm. Bust out the talking bottle cap and take turns asking and answering questions to fill in the picture. First on the docket, figure out what the limitations are on Safi's shape-shifting bullshit. She can only transform into anyone she's met in person, so there is a limitation at least. But we'll have to pry more to get anything else. She snarkily offers to tell us who she's been, which means we get to figure out why some people have been acting so strange and suspicious. So, Gwen specifically. Safi then trauma dumps on me about why she did the things she did, and I'm sorry, but getting someone fired over a book deal falling through is an overreaction. Self-publishing is pretty easy to do now, and I'm sure it's just a point of pride to be carried by a real publisher, but that's not the end-all be-all of options anymore. But she does get to the point, and she says she's broken in because she's a paranoid cretin who thinks we
orchestrated it.
All because we didn't immediately tell her that we knew. I tell her I needed more info, and she starts throwing the blame at me like this was any of my business to begin with. Like Safi, why would I, a time-traveling photographer, have anything to do with your dead book deal? Think, dumbass! Anyways, we ask about Lucas and why she thought it was a good idea to involve an innocent child into her revenge quest. That's quite literally one of the most evil things you could do, and what she did was only a couple of steps behind doing that thing Walter does in season 4 of Breaking Bad, and I'm being vague because I don't want to spoil it, but if you've seen the show, you know exactly what I'm referring to. Thankfully, the game lets us tell her off, but her response is genuinely, like, psychopathic, saying that it was the only way. No, Safi, that was not the only way you could have harmed Lucas, but whatever, we gotta ask about some of the others, like Finn and Amanda. Short answer on both. She was the Vin who forgot the passcode. We accidentally told her about Vin being the one behind the cow skull. She makes some offhanded comment about him not being over her, and I kinda don't care. But her response is, again, kind of off-putting to say the least. Although, in a kind of funny moment, we do admit to having made out with Vin, and Safi almost has a human reaction. Anyways, we ask about Amanda, and Safi tries to play it off like it was, quote, self-defense. We tell her off for bringing another innocent into the game, so to speak, and once again, Safi reacts in a way that comes off very much like a calculated move and not an apology. What I'm getting at is Safi is pretty manipulative, to say the least, but it feels intentional, unlike Chloe. But I'm getting ahead of myself. It's our turn to answer questions now, and Safi immediately dumps the dumbest question on us out of the gate with direct quote, "Are you like that girl in Frozen?" Which is dumb, but I'm more impressed that Disney didn't try and sue them into oblivion for title dropping one of their properties in an M-rated game. It's time to explain our timey-wimey bullshit. Safi is confused, and we have to explain it's the same, except for the fact that in our timeline, it's time for a repeated singing gag. Have you heard the news that she's dead? No one ever had much nice to say. I think they never liked her anyway. Oh, take her from the hospital bed. Wouldn't it be great to take a pistol by the hand? And wouldn't it be great if she was dead? And in my honest observation, during your operation, found a complication in your heart so long. Sorry, I blacked out for a second. Sure hope I didn't do anything stupid. Anyway, Safi doesn't take the news that she's dead too awful well, which is weirdly human for this character. She then tells us to look at this photograph, and every time I do it makes me laugh, because it's such a dumb photo conceptually, but it makes sense in universe. We tell her our working theory on what the photo is, and we're gonna table this discussion for a bit. It's our turn to ask questions, and I'm really interested in getting the rules of her powers down, just so it makes sense. Turns out it's just manipulating people's perception of her by manipulating the part of their brain that perceives her. It's really creepy in all honesty, and kind of a letdown because I was expecting more. But okay, that was our question, I guess, since she slides the bottle cap over back to us to ask about our time traveling
Chicanery?
We explicitly state that we could rewind time. Safi says what is perhaps the single dumbest line in this entire franchise, and that's a pretty tall order, all things considered. I mean, she says directly, quote, "You really white privileged into all of the cool powers," and I'm kinda dumbfounded by this choice, as is Max, who immediately tells her that no, this power was not cool, but was in fact a curse. Now, maybe I explained it poorly, or maybe Safi really is just Chloe in disguise, but because I swear they have the exact same reaction and list of things they'd do if they could rewind time. Anyways, Max then tells her about the fact that this power and its usage have extreme consequences and ramifications from personal experience, but Safi doesn't see the problem in that. Then it's our turn to ask our last question. When did she discover she could do this shape-shifting stuff? Turns out it was right after her dad left, and I'm sorry to go on a tangent, but this is the lamest reason a character got powers in this series. Alex's powers literally ruined her life and made the already traumatic experience that is the US foster care system way worse for her. Max had to watch Chloe die in front of her to get her powers, and Danny Boy had to watch his dad get gunned down by the police in front of his very eyes at the age of 8 years old to get his. But all it took Safi to get her powers was her rich parents getting a divorce, and that's so deeply lame and unsatisfying. Oh, boo-hoo, your dad left you and your mom with mountains of money in a college you got a full ride to because your mom runs it. Wah, wah, wah. Anyways, setting my hate aside for a second, Safi talks about how the divorce broke her mom and how in turn it made it her mom's mission to make sure Safi wasn't broken, which ironically broke Safi. I'll tell you, it was a bold move for the writers of this series to have mommy issues be the motivating factor for a major character this time around, given how literally every game before this one had daddy issues as a major motivating factor, believe you me. Now, I'm not going to downplay Safi's self-identity issues as a result of the pressure her mom put on her, but I'm sorry, I really kinda don't give a shit. Maybe it's because I've observed that Safi is a very manipulative person and I have a hard time accepting a lot of what she says to be true, but I couldn't tell ya. That's not to say that I don't understand and sympathize to the fullest extent I'm able to, but she could have told me all of this and then I'd find out that she was lying and I wouldn't have been surprised, you know? Anyways, she doesn't give us a chance to respond or probe any deeper and just slides the cap to us to get more information for her own purposes. We then, regrettably, have to mention Chloe, and Max blames herself for Chloe's death as though the alternative wasn't letting literally thousands die. Also, one abusive dickbag could live. I get why she'd feel this way about it. I really do, and it says a lot about her character that she feels the way she does about her now, about 10 years after the fact. Shockingly, Safi has a human response, telling Max that or the same shit, or I'd say, which is you can't blame yourself for pulling the lever on the God's dick trolley problem and sacrificing one for the good of the many. But Max is determined to blame herself as though she didn't make the morally and philosophically correct choice. Then she pieces together that her powers are inherently tied to tragedy, and I feel pretty justified because I've been calling Max a tragic hero for years now, and I was kinda right on the money. Feels good, man. Feels good. We then slide the bottle cap over to her, tell her Moses' message, and now it's time for us to finally learn about Safi's Rachel Amber, Maya. She tells us all of the usual things we expect, like she was the greatest writer she's ever known, and how Lucas stole and plagiarized her work, which Safi believes is the main reason Maya took her own life. Now, when Safi says she blames herself for what happened, yeah, that's on her this time. She deliberately told Maya to stay quiet about it, but wouldn't you know it, she's still more mad at the world than she is at herself, and boy of boy, who does that remind us of? Anyways, we can ask her about who she blames specifically, and when you ask about Vin, he's really the one who deserved it the least. She's all, quote, when Caledon said jump, I at least have enough humanity to regret asking how high. And granted, that's because I know more than she does, but it's not like he doesn't regret it far more than she does. He regrets it for so much more than she could comprehend, and his reasoning for taking the deal makes a lot of sense. But you already know that, because I know that, and I told you that. Ask about Gwen, we get a non-statement, and finally ask about Yasmin. Safi lies about how she doesn't hold Yasmin, telling Maya to keep quiet and protecting Lucas against her, but that's what we in the industry of writing like to call a lie. Max then asks what the hell any of this has to do with the book, and I guess she forgot her entire conversation with Gwen where she said every poem in there was about Maya. Safi then talks about how the book getting the plug pulled on the book led to her seeking a different way of getting retribution. Max calls it what it is, which is a revenge tour, but this bitch thinks she's Batman, and what she's doing is righteous because she calls it a justice tour, which again, no it's not. You're more focused on harming innocents and ruining their lives than getting real justice for those who have been wronged. Max tries to ask about if Safi has actually thought this through, and what if it's the reason Max apparently shot her, like it's some kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. Safi then is like, oh, you mean the photo I don't even remember taking? I mean, do you even own a gun? And no, we don't even own a gun, let alone multiple guns to necessitate a gun rack. Sorry, where was I? Right, we don't have a gun, and when Max shows the very reasonable concerns, since she's been down this road before, Safi goes all, who cares, we've got superpowers, and she fails to consider that she's not actually invincible. Safi comes off like she's trying to manipulate us, and she issues us a major choice. Do we think we're capable of hurting her like that? Yes or no? I say no, but that's mostly to make her feel good and not suspect it when I absolutely say psych later. She says she trusts us, even though she shouldn't. Max is continuously level-headed, and then I guess she's been successfully manipulated into helping Safi get justice the right way, which is the way she should have thought of in the first place. I mean, why did she never think to expose Lucas's problem directly, since he's the problem? I don't know. Maybe it's because she's a dumbass, or maybe it's because she likes hurting other people, like she's a John Kramer Jigsaw type. Whatever though, we're formulating a plan to hijack campus's Krampus event. It's a weird campus tradition, you know? I still don't really understand what the hell the Boulder Run tradition is on my campus. And we're gonna get justice the right way. The way that actually sees results instead of being an asshole like Safi's way is. In the Turtle, it's time to enact our master plan. We're off to get everyone on our side. Tragically for me, Safi is handling Vin, and we're left to convince Gwen and Reggie to join the cause. Let's go with Gwen first, and shockingly, the flash drive that she was so adamant about burning was actually really weird, and she showed it to the board. Not that it made a difference, she got fired regardless, but she tried, so that counts for something. The weird thing is that the flash drive, along with us telling her our plan to tear down Lucas's empire of lies, actually reignited the fight in her that she lost, and she's all in on helping us. Let's go! We try to talk to Reggie, but this boyo won't budge and let us use the projector like a total narc. So it's time to bring out the big guns, and by guns, I mean the Moseses. We're gonna use Dead World Moses to help us get the projector into a state where only he could fix it, thus sending Living World Moses to get on the projector since he'll help us with our plan. Of course, we do the deed, and I report back to Dead World Moses to thank him for his services, which means I do also make a quick detour to help him complete his gingerbread house by getting Safi to give us her chimneys because he broke his. Long story. The point is, it's a sweet little moment of calm before the unholy shitstorm we're about to rain down upon Lucas. Anyways, with all of our prep work done, it's time to let shit hit the fan. Oh yeah, side note, I examined a flyer for Loretta's podcast, listened to part of an episode, and she was talking about this cat that's gone missing. And wouldn't you know it, it leads us to the owner of the cat. And we regrettably do the right thing and send Iris on home. Tragic we don't get to keep the little guy, but whatever, duty calls. With the brief cat update out of the way, let the shit hitting the fan commence. Except we've got to help Lucas calm the hell down and get his ass on the stage so we can make the magic happen. Through the powers of shape-shifting and talking fast and smart, we get Lucas onto the stage, and now it's time for the show. Also, Safi found a gun in Lucas's coat. That's definitely not off-putting at all. And she's keeping it for herself. Definitely not concerning at all. Nope. No siree, definitely not scared of what could happen if Safi is armed. Anyways, let the show start and our expose begin. It starts off like a normal roast, but quickly becomes our way to show the evidence. The crowd is concerned, everyone starts dogpiling on him, Lucas threatens Vin, and Vin starts to falter because he'll do a lot of things for love, but he's not exactly trying to lose everything on an expose that's not even his in the first place. Gwen chimes in, Lucas manages to shut her down, and it seems like he's starting to get the upper hand. Oh no! Now it's time for Safi to get involved, which means we make the choice for her since she's gonna go up there as Vin instead of herself. I tell her it's time for her to fight her own battles and she can do it. She reluctantly goes up there, spits facts, and the crowd is back on our side. That and Lucas also sets his own career on fire like a dumbass. I mean, his response was terrible, and he has no improv skills. But hey, we won. We did it. Lucas stormed off, and his career is Jover. Lucas pulls Safi aside before we can start to celebrate. Safi goes off to chat, and we go hang with Moses for a bit, like her, because I like Moses. He's pretty cool. I do the time jump to tell Dead World Moses the good news, and then we're heading back to hit up Living World Moses. But disaster strikes pretty fast when Lucas comes back in a frenzy, and there's suddenly a hurricane going on outside. We book it to the Overlook because Safi is confronting chasing her mom, and it looks like a second shit has hit the fan. We get there, and Safi's got a gun pointed at her mom, and I think I'm piecing together that Lucas told Safi the real truth, the cold hard truth that she couldn't deal with, and now it's time to confront Mother. We try to talk Safi down, she points the gun at Max, then back at Mom. We try to reason with the beast, but even telling her that she's about to hurt a lot of innocent people in the process, she doesn't care. The problem was her mom the whole time. She
orchestrated it.
Yasmin. We keep trying to calm her down, but apparently we just keep getting hit with more reveals, like Yasmin intentionally keeping Safi's dad out of her life and making her believe it was all her or his idea. And I'm starting to see why therapy is a tool that more people should utilize, because some therapy could have probably eased the pain and made life not end up so bad for these people. Just a thought. Anyways, Yasmin and Safia argue more. I try to talk Safi down instead of using violence, because usually Max is able to talk people down successfully, but not this time. Safi takes the shot and hits Yasmin in the shoulder. We rush to help the recently shot, but Safi's powers go apeshit and she's transforming into everyone. So grabbing Safi and using focus, we pull one hell of a Mario 64 and into the next chapter.
In my restless dreams, I see that town.
Arcadia Bay. We are back to square one, the moment we wake up after falling in chapter 1. We're in some weird nightmare version of Caledon, and we're bum rushing it to the Overlook to confront Safi. She's losing it out here. She's got a gun, and we're confused as all hell. Safi then asks us to shoot her, pull the trigger, nail her to the cross, let her be reborn, all that Voss Montenegro type shit. And it's time to let destiny take its course. Just kidding. Safi takes the photo of us pointing the gun at her, and wouldn't you know it, we've looped back to the last time we focused. Max keeps trying to not kill people, despite how much God wants her to, and she just can't do it. She throws the gun into the storm and says she's not going to make another impossible choice between two shitty futures. And I'm sorry, but she's just wrong. Killing Chloe was the easiest choice of my life. It was never a question. She was an abusive asshat, and I'm sorry, but Safi is in the same boat. I'd pull that trigger like there's no tomorrow if push comes to shove. Max takes Safi by the hand and walks into the storm and further into the nightmare. We're back on campus, 2 moons in the sky, and storm off in the distance. We find Diamond, I try to ignore her and her pointless conversation, and we're off to the Fine Arts building to find the others since they seem to be in more danger than Diamond is. Into the Fab, and wouldn't you know it, we're on the roof of the observatory with Moses acting like not Moses, but Safi. That's weird enough, but what's weirder is that we're getting weird texts from the past, like a text from a cat, but more importantly, there's a text from Warren. This is not a drill, my boy is in the game, and I couldn't be happier. Except you can pinpoint this as the exact moment my heart shattered, because Max says very bluntly, I'm past the living in a dorm stage. I'm past the responding to Warren's text stage too, and I'm in shambles. My boy got mentioned, but at what cost? It's never been this over. There is no God in this world. I feel like I've lost everything, and somehow I'm not sure if this is worse than Max having the autofocus on her DSLR. Either way, I want a direct apology from whoever on the writers team decided to just completely disrespect my boy like this. Anyways, as much as I'm now broken and defeated, I want you all to know we'll carry on telling this story because I've got so much more to talk about. Back on track, talk to Moses. He's just repeating all of Safi's lines from the first chapter, and it's really cool. He gets stuck saying photo a bunch, and this gives Max the idea to take a photo, and when Moses comes back through for a split second panicking, we bust out the camera, take a picture, and what the hell? It's Safi. Weird. But we double expose the photo, and Moses is back in the land of the living. He's been freed from Safi's mind prison, and he starts telling us about the hell he's been to. We've got a new resolve since he mentioned something about the others, and we're on our mission to save them all, baby. We leave Moses and head off to go through another door as a familiar blue butterfly lands on it. Max even says that classic line from the original, when one door closes, a window opens. And I was like, oh, that's a neat callback. back, and didn't think really much of it until we snapped back to reality. Where are we? Well, it should look very familiar because we're back in Blackwell's infamous bathroom. And on one hand, it's very cool, very Silent Hill 2, this is your own purgatory created from your guilt, and as we get the exact same dialogue from the first game, I was starting to get extremely scared. Did these writers disrespect Warren and bring Chloe back into the game? Did they just do the dumbest shit you could have possibly done and absolutely ruined this game? I was getting scared. But then Max peeks around the corner and it's her and Safi in place of Nathaniel, the shitroom shooter, and Chloe respectively. Oh, thank God. There is no Chloe. Whew. For a minute there, I was about to have an aneurysm and die, but this is still Max's story, not Chloe's. So all is well. Max takes the shot, and when we get the classic hero shot of Max yelling no and sticking her hand out to rewind, we cut back and they were just never there. Like this truly was an all-inlay head type beat like Jacob's Ladder, or Silent Hill 2, or The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. I take a moment to re-examine the old graffiti, just for the little nostalgia trip. It was kind of neat. I'm glad I did it. I like seeing it. Anyway, and you get ready to steal your resolve and get ready to go. I'll say this, at least the text you get from Kate prompts Max to say she deserves better, so you know what, maybe it's not so bad. Well, I spoke too soon. We kick open a stall door and end up in the Otherworld bowling alley. This really is just like Silent Hill 2, where you go to the bowling alley and you know what I'm talking about, right? Anyways, we need to find a way down and the stairs are broken, so it's time to see what our other reality has to offer us, and it's Jefferson's dark room. Oh boy, I love reliving my own personal trauma. It's my favorite. Man, this really is Silent Hill 2, huh? Sorry, I'll stop bringing it up now, I promise. We go to leave, but the vault door is locked, so we turn around and see the chair. Yep, it's time to relive part of Episode 5 Max Caulfield's finest hour from the critically acclaimed A Leg of Glazed Ham video, Be Kind, Rewind, Life is Strange. I couldn't resist the opportunity, I'm sorry. We're strapped down to the chair again, and it's time to fight our demons to help Safi fight hers or something. But once we've done this, a way down has appeared and we can keep moving forward to help save the world just like before. Down in the bowling alley proper, we need to jump realities to find Lucas next to a big old cherry tree. He's reciting Safi's poems, but we know what to do here. Bust out the Polaroid, double expose that bitch, and he's been saved. Max then drops a line, and I know I've made a lot of music references, but this one was handed to me on a silver platter. I have to make the joke. Lucas says, "Max, it's really you," which prompts her to say, "In the flesh." In the flesh? So ya thought ya might like to go to the show to feel the warm thrill of confusion, that space cadet glow. Only something eluding you, sunshine. Is this not what you expected to see? If you wanna find out what's behind these cold eyes, you'll just have to claw your way through this disguise. Anyways, we're off to go save our next person, and it just so happens to be Reggie, only a couple feet away. I kinda don't care, Reggie. I've got someone I'm far more interested in saving. He recalls a lot of things, most of which is the person I'm more interested in saving, and I'm not sorry Reggie get dunked on. Speak of the devil, there he is! And boy is he losing it over there. I mean, I get it. I'd be losing it too in his case. If there wasn't a single universe where the person I thought was my friend couldn't care less if I lived or died, especially if I was in love with them, I would be in the same situation too. And then Max, my girl, she drops, quote, "Maybe you should focus on what's in front of you," because she's standing in front of him, and it's so cute. I don't care if it's cliche, it's adorable, like, oh my God. It reminds me of that part in Invincible issue 50, and out of respect for not spoiling the show that I think you should watch, I can't be specific, but if you've read the comic, you know what I'm referring to, and again, it's a very, very sweet moment that I won't spoil. Anyways, me swooning aside, Max is off to save the world, but unlike the last time we got a moment with a sweet boy, it won't end in him becoming a what's-his-name. With that done, it's time to leave the bowling alley and end up at the Turtle. Amanda is normal, thank God, but Gwen is outside on the patio drinking. Amanda is losing her shit at how calm we are. We tell her to go get a water or a beer or something, and we'll be back to explain things in a second once we've saved Gwen. Use the jump, go outside, and we're in a motel. This must be from our time on the road, taking photos and shit across America. We leave one motel room and end up in another, and it's getting a little weird, like visually distorted, and Max is kinda getting sleepy. And we're in a cycle because this is the third room. The colors are almost completely desaturated, and I get it. I'd be feeling gray if I was in Cleveland too. One more motel jump and we're in pure black and white. The door is painted on the wall, and the only option we have is to go to bed. We take a quick power nap, but realize we're still on a mission to save the world, so get up, samurai, we've got a city to save. Now we're back in the Turtle after our brief visit to Silent Hill, which means we can go back and save Gwen. Amanda is confused, but we promise we'll explain shit later. And hey, now we can save Gwen because all that crap that was blocking the door is gone. Yippee! Take a pic, double expose it, and now Gwen is back to being Gwen and not Safi. Bring her into safety after listening to what she experienced in Safi's nightmare world, and we're off to go find Safi herself for what is hopefully the last jump. We get another kind of cliche moment when Amanda says, "Why do I always have to fall for the weird ones?" As Max tells her she's off to go find Safi, and it's kind of cute, I'll admit it. I'm sure it'd be different if I romanced her, but I didn't, and I'm not replaying the whole game again from the start just yet. We go through the door, and we're back on campus. We see Safi, hug for some reason, talk about what's going on, take a quick break to just kind of chat, and this character is like Chloe Alarm is blaring in full force again, because it feels like Safi is trying to manipulate me again. We then hard cut to us in the bar. Safi is drinking, asking if there's a chance everyone will just forget what happened, but I'm not so sure they will. Safi's really buttering us up, and I'm getting a funny feeling that I'm being manipulated. Sure enough, we're on the roof of the observatory again. Safi is maybe showing remorse, but like I call BS, this is textbook emotional manipulation. Anyway, we regrettably talk about Chloe and how we ran away after she died and how cowardly we were. And Safi starts off being supportive, and I was with her, that it wasn't our fault, up until she launched into a speech about how we're divine gods, and did I call it or what? She was emotionally manipulating us into being by her side and ruling the galaxy or something. Now we're in the house doing the bottle cap shit, and oh hey, Safi has dropped the act. She's all the only person I can trust is me, etc., etc., and I guess we've got the last piece of Safi's scattered soul in us, and get it out of me! I don't want this! Take a damn photograph so we can get back to reality as intended and save everyone else. Now we're back in our reality, this new converged reality where everyone has this weird like double memory and also everything is still very much messed up from God's dickening. Oh hey, remember how Safi shot her mom? Yeah, I kind of forgot to be honest, and so did Max. She immediately rushes over to help her. Safi gazes upon her kingdom or something. We try to reason with her, but I don't think she's gonna deal with us. Yasmin is going nuts over Safi's powers, then Safi launches into a whole ass villain speech, asks why we don't use rewind, and I really wish this bitch would listen to me when I said that rewind has devastating consequences. Max tells her off again, and she still doesn't get it, but she's all in on being an evil Professor X, like she wants to find other people with powers and bring them into our group like we're some kind of X-Men or something, I don't know. She's going insane, and I'm sorry, Safi, but I have morals, and in contrast to what the song says, not everybody wants to rule the world. Some people just want to live normal lives that don't involve bending reality to our will. She then asks us if we're with her or against her, drops some more casual emotional manipulation, and here it is, the final choice. Join her or refuse.
Think fast, supplements!
I mean, you don't need to think that fast. Safi is just straight up evil, and I'm a real human being and a real hero, so I shut that shit down. Safi is less than enthused that we won't be her plaything and aren't here to deal with her power-abusing bullshit. She shapeshifts into us, makes a vague threat, and walks off. Hey, can we get Yasmin to a hospital or something? She's still bleeding out here, buddy. Well, we get a small little time jump to a few days later, and we're dealing with the wrecked campus. It's a really cool thing, and I'm so glad we get a little more because I really wanted to see what happened out here in the real world. Also, we have to return Iris to her rightful owner, which does mean talking to Loretta, who I guess had her own little character arc of learning the true meaning of Christmas or something. I wish I could have kept the cat, but hey, we can't always have everything we want. We've got one last section of game here, and this is the part where we wrap up everyone's character arcs. Since Safi is done and out of the way, we're gonna have a chat at the Turtle, but first let's meander around campus and really let things linger, since that's honestly one of the things this game does best. But we'll get to that once I start analyzing things. Shocking, I know, but judging by the remaining page count of this script and runtime of this video, there's a lot to get through. I actually went in on my quick replaying through explore mode and saw some other shit like I missed on accident, like talking to Reggie. I gave him a small apology for stealing Vin from him. He's a bit of a dick about it, and when he starts almost having a panic attack, which is admittedly very funny because he's just listing all of his problems that aren't Vin related, and it's very funny. Anyways, get cucked, Reggie. I also talked to Loretta, which I wouldn't ordinarily do, but I wanted to hear her out. I missed her in the storm, I guess. Sorry about ya. She talks about how she's feeling the effects of the doubling, and it's nice to see her having learned to be a real person. Anyways, talk to Lucas, and guess who's working on an apology statement? Yeah, I don't care about that part of it, mostly because he's gonna take some time to be a better father and all that good stuff. So maybe there's a person underneath it all, but I couldn't tell you yet. He's off to find another place in the world, given that plagiarist is a hard label to shake, especially in the world of academia. We get a call from Yasmin before we head off to the Turtle to talk to everyone else, like Moses, Vin, Amanda, and Gwen, the whole gang, and then some. But anyway, Yasmin is determined to find Safi. She's lost her job, and we haven't heard shit from Safi. But she's gotta go before we can really get anywhere. Medical shit, am I right? Anyhow, let's get to the Turtle and wrap this adventure up, yeah? I mean, Christ, it's 2:56 a.m. as I record this. Let's go! At the Turtle, we walk in, and it's time for us to give a rousing speech and also, explain to everyone what the hell happened. Well, come one, come all, it's time to make the rounds. Talk to Vin, hug the boy, he apologizes for spam texting you. We understand, and I love this guy, he's really special. Anyways, we promise to talk to him later, but we won't get to see that. You know how it be. Then we're gonna talk to Amanda. She asks how we're doing with everything now it's out in the open, and honestly, it feels pretty damn good. Freeing. Amanda makes a joke about how she feels like she dodged a bullet by us just staying friends, which is pretty funny, I won't lie. I think it's kinda interesting that she says deliberately that she's not sure she could handle this if she was more entangled in it than she already is, but I'm not gonna read too much into that. We talk to Diamond. She's a bit aggressive on the wanting to understand, but I don't have any answers for her because we're still figuring it out for ourselves. And she's unsatisfied with that for sure. Last up, Gwen. We talk about how we feel and the roles we played in Safi's bullshit adventure. And one last thing, she realizes that Safi got her fired, but since the Safi shit happened, the committee is taking another look, so maybe Gwen will get her job back after all. And at the very least, she's determined to stay around and not give up on her students. Hell yeah! Now we're off to Moses, and after we talk to him, we're going to give our big speech that explains it all. Max is ready. She's no longer going to hide or run away from her problems like she did after she let Chloe die. We're going to stand proud and fight. And when Moses asks if we'd ever go back to Arcadia Bay, she says yeah. With that, it's time to gather everyone around to explain everything. Max starts, everyone is really interested. I love the cinematography here. I love how Max just owns up to what she's done. And I'm really enamored with this scene. It's a very interesting speech, and I love how it's the polar opposite energy of the first game's ending. This isn't sad, this is hopeful, and I'm here for it. We get a title card and the credits roll. What a game. But wait, what's this? A post-credit scene of Diamond at the Overlook? Huh, that's weird. Wonder what she's up to here. Oh, she's got a nosebleed, and that's odd. But then, oh god, it's Safi, and I'm sensing she's here to recruit Diamond to her side, especially because Safi says she has answers. Oh no, not only is Safi evil and manipulative, but she's gonna groom Diamond into being her sidekick. Oh god, why? And then, in bold white letters, we get a message proclaiming that Max Caulfield will return. And that's right, bitches. This was only part 1, cause this gonna be a 2-parter at least. And ordinarily, I'd be kinda unhappy about this, but when I tell you I've never been more ready for a sequel, I'd be lying. Invincible Season 3 is pretty high up there, Psychonauts 2, River City Girls 2, Forza Horizon 3, Smiling Friends Season 2 were all pretty high up there. Okay, so there's a lot of sequels I was/am ready for, but this one is pretty high up on the list. The point is, the game was only the start of something, and dare I say it's the start of something beautiful? I don't know yet. Let's look at everything else I have to say before I call it, and then we'll see how I'm feeling. The characters in this game may be the strongest part of the game, and boy, there are some good ones in here. There's also a couple of bad ones that we'll talk about all in due time, because we're going to talk about the good ones first, because there's more good than bad. Unless I just kind of forgot and started talking about them in a random order. Who knows? Who cares, baby? That's what we're here for. First on the block, I want to talk about my boy Moses. Moses is a dork, a dweeb, a wonderful guy, and taken, sadly. I really love Moses. He's a real homie throughout the whole game, and he was definitely well used by the narrative. I buy that he was one of Safi's best friends before shit went down, and I really like how fully utilized he is by the narrative. Moses gets a lot to do, and I appreciate that. What I appreciate more is all of the extra details that we get about him through the background stuff. He's a dweeb that plays this universe's version of Magic the Gathering, watches anime, and does science. And if you're really paying attention to all of the in-game social media posts, the collectible Polaroids and all that, you'll know that Moses has a long-distance boyfriend named Tony. It's interesting that even when he's not on screen, you can still get some extra characterization from that shit that just exists out in the world of the game, and I love that. I love all the world building we get, especially since they had to make 2 different worlds with their own set of issues and problems within the same overarching narrative. It's kind of neat. Now, before I can continue with the talk about other staff members, I need to talk about the students, starting with Reggie. So, Reggie's a weird little guy. I mean, he has no perseverance, is by all accounts a mediocre student that believes in the phrase D- get degree minuses, or however it actually goes. If it tells you anything, this character could have very easily been made by sentence mixing Jesse Pinkman lines. And it would work shockingly well. Also, early season Breaking Bad Jesse looks a lot like Reggie, so, you know, that's a thing. On an unrelated note, Reggie is a freak and he's obsessed with Vin, like his defining character trait is being horny on main, and I guess God bless him for it. Loretta is a bitch and a bastard for most of the game, and this can be pinpointed on her being a student journalist, but worse than that, a true crime podcaster. She is the epitome of the usual true crime creator, which is to say an insensitive prick that exploits the tragedy of others for personal and financial gain. She's the kind of person that'll do anything for a scoop, and she's an annoying rat, as shown in episode 1. The weird thing is though, she somehow mellows out by the end of the game, and while I'd done fugged up and missed her during the nightmare sequence, she learns the true meaning of Christmas and empathy. So good for her, I guess. I mean, they gave her a character arc, which is cool, but again, I kinda don't care given that she's done some terrible things. She even took the cat from me to return it to its proper owner, which is commendable, I suppose. Maybe I treated this character too harshly. Nah, who am I kidding? Of course not. I'm not even gonna bring up the conspiracy theory that Loretta is actually Rachel because they do really look eerily similar. Diamond is the last student I need to mention, and she's not a great character. I personally found her to be very annoying. Her whole mission of trying to get to be the head of Abraxas is not compelling, and the major problem is I should like her. She's a film major, which means I should have thought she was alright, but there's some things about this character that I really dislike. The smallest problem I have is on the writer's end, when in a flashback Polaroid, which tells us about some film project Diamond was working on, and she makes an offhand remark about achieving something through good old-fashioned practical effects, citing they'd be cheaper than CG, which is blatantly incorrect. I'm sorry to tell you, but CG, especially as of 2022, 2023, when this game is set, is exponentially cheaper than going for practical effects in almost every conceivable way. Now, this may be more on the writers, and I'm sure that's the case, but come on, man, the character should know better than that. Now, my real problem with this character is that they made her have romantic feelings for Moses, a gay man, and this small character detail that you only learn from examining a specific document recontextualizes so much and in a way that I personally find creepy. I understand to an extent that this is a thing that happens in the real world, but the letter you read where Diamond explains all of this has some weird word choices that make me think she's not willing to move on from Moses. Maybe I'm misreading it, but it left me with a really bad feeling about this character that made me kind of unhappy every time she appeared. But hey, it is what it is, right? I'm probably making a problem out of nothing again, but it stands out as a weird thing to me. Moving right along, Detective Alderman is one of the best side characters here, and I wish we got more of him, even though his death is the craziest thing in the game. I know I talked about the performance earlier, but I want to mention it again because this performance is so insane. He's so weirdly calm about everything in a way that I find to be very menacing. The whole conversation when he offers Max the business card is so well done, and god damn is he a threatening rat bastard. He's also competent because he's able to piece together that shit is wrong during the telescope replacement debacle, even if it can't be explained. And that's such a cool thing. But of course, the big moment is him deleting himself from existence because it's such a cool set piece, and was a cool thing to see. It was in service of setting up some tensions for the end of episode 3, when you have to grab who you think is your past future self. It's kind of neat, but yeah. I do wish he was utilized a little more just because of how good the performance is, but I digress. Lucas is a filthy plagiarist who deserves death for his sins. But I digress. Lucas is a weird thing to me because, setting aside the fact he's a godless plagiarist, he's a good teacher for creative writing because the feedback he gives is actually good. He's providing feedback that is truly professional and actually helpful from a writer's perspective, and I'll admit, he's got a certain charm to him. The timeline differences between Lucas's is interesting too. In one timeline, he's an absentee dad more concerned with his career, and in the other, he's a loser trying to be a good dad. I think the small detail in the living timeline when you keep his restraining order a secret and he goes to his son's karate tournament instead of the Writers Expo is a very nice touch. And by the end of the game, I feel like he's on the right path. Granted, his right path includes a YouTuber apology video for his plagiarist ways, but at least he's motivated to be a better parent, so that's a win. And then there's Gwen. Gwen's an enigma of a character because I honestly couldn't tell you when Gwen is actually Gwen versus when Gwen is imposter Gwen, or if she's just like that all the time. As a character, Gwen's fine, and you help her rekindle her drive to fight for what's right is nice, but it's all of the stuff before the events of the game that I think is more interesting when discussing this character. Gwen was Safi's professor, but she was also her biggest mentor, advisor, and advocate. And you know what? I understand why Safi felt so deeply betrayed when Gwen killed the book deal. I'll tell you, I know how important a teacher that believes in you can be. That's actually why I'm making this show today, actually. That's right, you can blame everything I make on my 10th and 12th grade English teacher who gave me the push in the wrong direction I needed to start writing in the first place. On the off chance you're seeing this, thank you so much for giving me that push in the wrong direction I needed. I cannot say that enough. and I probably don't say it enough, but thank you. I truly mean that. Anyways, back to Gwen. I think her place as a mentor figure that did something stupid was interesting, and I like her arc of learning to fight again, but I don't love how we got there. She makes some weird choices, man. What can I say? Moving right along, Amanda is perhaps the most straightforward lesbian in the series. And I want to be clear, this is not inherently a good or bad thing, it is just a thing. Weird sentence, I know, but listen. Amanda has the usual borderline stereotypical lesbian characteristics. Prime example, I made a U-Haul joke earlier, and the distant sound of a U-Haul says that I'm not gonna get such luxury. Because that's a well-known comedic stereotype in the lesbian community, and the game made the joke way before I did. If you're unfamiliar, the joke is about the lesbian tendency to move in with each other very soon after a couple starts dating. This joke has origins reportedly dating back to 1989, as far as I can find in my research, and is commonly attributed to Leah Delaria, so there's some comedy history for you. Back to the game at hand, Amanda fits the bill of a U-Haul lesbian perfectly. Like, in the game, she admits that she has issues with getting attached to people way too quickly. So do you see what I mean? Amanda has a lot of underlying things like that, but in a way that feels natural, you know? It doesn't feel stereotypical. It just feels like that's how the character is. Anyways, I feel like I'm not talking enough about the character, so let's rein it in a bit. Amanda's pretty cool. I like her. I almost asked her out when I was given the choice, and would've if I had met the other option and not liked him. As a whole, Amanda is alright, she's fun enough, and is a major step up from Steph, and absolutely leagues above Chloe. That's all for now on her. And now, it's time for the part of the essay where Glazed Ham talks about the male love interest for a really long time. And you know what? I like Vin. I like him a lot. He's definitely the freakiest of the male love interests, and maybe the freakiest love interest in the series, period. But I mean that in a good way. He's a sad bastard, a failed actor with a lot of regrets, and I think the fact that he has those regrets shows a complexity and character that I find interesting. I also just find him to be a lot of fun because he's a freak. Like, the smasher pass kiss of the girl moment almost had me derail the entire essay to do a smasher pass of every adult in the Life is Strange franchise, because it was a really funny idea to me, but I didn't because I have self-restraint. I do love that scene. I think it's really simple, grounded, down to earth, and lovely, while also being a very fun moment to contrast the infinite sadness that is Max's life. The big moment for me, though, is Vin's part in the Chapter 5 nightmare, where he's pieced together that Safi never loved him or really even liked any reality despite what it seems like. Him being destroyed by that realization is really interesting to see, but the best part of that scene is just Max's response, because her just telling him to focus on what's in front of him while she's standing in front of him is really sweet, and I felt my heart melt in that moment because it's so sweet and I love them together. Anyways, Vin is a complicated little guy with a complicated set of motivations. I really like what they did with him, and I wish more people who have played the game would give him a chance. I'd hope time balances out the global stats screen, but I can only hope and pray that people get to see this character the way I do, because he's a star, even if it's in nobody else's eyes but mine. And Max's too, I guess. So, Caledon University, huh? I love the setting of the game. Like, this campus looks so pretty, and it's a unique locale for the game. It does bring back memories of Blackwell, but it's winter now, and so it looks so much better. I'm a sucker for this kind of setting in media. Like, the snow is one of my favorite things in a setting, and this game took full advantage of that. And it's better than the last game in the series to use a snowy locale, which means I guess I'm back to talking about every location in the series. So let's start with the start. Blackwell Academy, and by proxy Arcadia Bay. I do love this town, that sleepy coastal town with the small artsy school and the huge mystery. It's a lot of fun things, all things considered. Feels very Twin Peaks, which is a good thing, and works in that game's favor since it's meant to be a weird, mysterious place, just like the show, and I love that. Sure, I'm biased because it's a very nostalgic location for me, but I do think it's utilized to its fullest potential. I'm gonna hit Colorado next because LIS2 is harder to talk about than this one, so let's look at the mountains, yeah? I've talked about it before, but I love Haven Springs. The mountains were a unique choice, and again, the setting was utilized to perfection by the narrative. It felt alive, the people are great, the environment is pretty, the mountains and mines were used fantastically, and again, it just looks so goddamn good. This is our Western State set game, even though pretty much every game before this one was set in Western America. I think of the non-coastal games, this one is the most well used for capturing that Middle America feeling. It doesn't quite feel like the West Coast Twin Peaks-esque mystery that lands in LIS and Before the Storm, but it does feel grounded and captures the vibe. Now, LIS2 has a ton of settings all along the West Coast and some adjacent states, and in an unsurprising move, none of them feel very good. I want to bring up Chapter 2 specifically because it's the one I'm the most disappointed in. This was the first time we got a December set episode in the franchise, and the snow should have been really cool and pretty, but it just felt underbaked. I should have thought that snowy Oregon was pretty, but I just felt nothing because the game never really felt like it was staying in one space long enough to really get a feel for it. I know that's the whole point of the game, but I generally like to feel something about a location and really take it all in, because setting is important to any narrative, and that's something I want to talk about with Double Exposure. I love the East Coast setting here. There's something really special about it. The campus is absolutely phenomenal, like the late 1700s, early 1800s architecture just looks so goddamn pretty in the snow, like oh my god. I love how much they lean into their location with the hills and overlooks, and the interiors of the buildings we get to see look so good, and I love the architecture here. The coolest thing to me is just how many interactable things there are in every area and every chapter. Like, I was spending way too much time in every area on my first playthrough, and I still managed to miss things. Like, there's tons of small details and art pieces I could have interacted with, but I missed them, and that's so cool. The details are something I play these games for, and it's how you get the most out of these things. There's so many photos I took, and there's an equal amount I still haven't found, and I adore that. This world feels lived in, and with the puzzle boxes, the platypus facts that I forgot to sign up for, plus the details that make it feel like a college campus, it's a really great use of the setting. I'm just saying, I'd go to this college if the tuition was good enough and their media programs were good, even considering the reality combining event. I think it'd be pretty cool, you know? Campus seems small, all the things you need are connected. It's a cool place. What more could I ask for? I can't believe I'm saying it after the series progressively got more and more like pop songs, but we're back to that classic indie rock, and God bless them for doing it well. Emphasis on the doing it well part, because this very easily could have been really annoying and forgettable like in Before the Storm, and I'll keep it real with you. The music here is nice, but it doesn't feel as instantly iconic as the original game's soundtrack. We're tonally and sonically back to our roots, but it feels slightly off, you know? The original game's soundtrack has this distinctly 2000s indie alt-rock feel to it, and there's plenty of artists you could have slid into that soundtrack that would have fit the vibe better of the character, but it mostly kind of lacks any particular memorability. I wasn't met with the sheer vibes of To All of You, or the emotional devastation of Spanish Sahara. But I was met with some pretty alright music that I'm not going to remember in all honesty. It feels like I wished for them to bring back the indie soundtrack, and when they did, the finger of the monkey's paw curled, and it's contemporary indie. Music from the 2000s, like the songs used in the original game, just hit harder and have this staying power that I feel is lacking in this soundtrack. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of music in this game, but outside of a couple tracks, I don't really recall most of it. I remember Everything I'm Not, which was pretty solid. Illusion is neat because it's played when you discover Imposter Max, and the song that plays in the ending I got was pretty fun, but I'm not sure how much of this is going to stick with me. Who knows, maybe with time and more playthroughs it'll grow on me, but the modern indie music just doesn't hit the same. Of course, the original game has this instantly iconic original and licensed soundtrack, and in part due to the composer of the game being Jonathan Morali. who is one of the core members of the band that just so happened to make the first licensed song in the game to all of you. Yeah, the composer of the game is the frontman of Sid Matters, and that influence and style is smeared all over that game. The distinct feeling of that era is something I hold pretty close to my heart, and I can tell you in a ton of different songs, you could have slid into this game that would have instantly hit insanely hard. As much as I have and am going to praise this game, I do want to talk about some of the changes I'd make. Most of them happen to be in the soundtrack department. I want to get my dumbest ideas out of the way first because it is in no way practical or in line with the game's vibes, but if you just hard needle dropped the man who sold the world during the imposter Max discovery scene and kept it through the chase sequence, it would have gone so insanely hard. You could have picked either the David Bowie version or the Midge Uri version, and it would have made an instant classic scene, and maybe one of the best in the entire series. Is it stupid? Oh, absolutely it is. But would it be fun? Yeah, of course it would be. Now, on the more reasonable front, I'm kind of shocked at their restraints because I didn't hear any musical callbacks in this game. No usage of Max and Chloe is a little weird to me, like it's the original music that you could have very easily used as a callback and have used it as a callback before, so why not here? I'm sure you could slot it in almost anywhere, maybe even during the opening sequence in the bowling alley scene, since since Max is kind of living the dream that she and Chloe had as kids, where they'd be exploring the world like a photographer Laura Croft, I don't know. Maybe play it during one of the voiceover callbacks, just having it would be something good, you know? And speaking of callbacks, I think if the Depression Nap used a song from the original game, it would have been a really smart move. If they just dropped To All of You on me during that sequence, it would have been a major nostalgia blast. But it also would have made sense to me and made sense in line with Max as a character. You can justify it as seeking of old familiar comforts during a period of desperation, and it would have been perfect. Hell, you could even tie the song into the choice you made about Chloe, so if you let her die, you get Spanish Sahara again. On the subject of that scene, if Max is in that, quote, dramatic goth kid grief, as Amanda so eloquently puts it, go all in on that Eric Draven-style grief and needle drop Burn by The Cure. I mean, it's a bit out there for the character of Max. We'd be leaning more into the alternative compared to the indie, but like, it'd go insanely hard, you know? But that'd cost a bit, so let's dial it back to something more in line with the scope of this game, yeah? Thinking in line with the character of Max, I think this game really would have benefited from sticking to the 2000s and 2010s for her music, because there's a goldmine of songs you could have used. I'll forever champion Wilco, and a song I can't believe this series keeps avoiding is a Wilco song called One Wing from Wilco the album. And when I tell you that that song was tailor-made for this series, I mean it. It's so sonically in line with Spanish Sahara and Mount Washington that I'm baffled it's not in any of the games. Hell, I'm baffled there's not a single Wilco song anywhere in the franchise, because it's a match made in heaven for this series. But that's besides the point. One Wing may not be built to fly, but it sure is built for this soundtrack. I mean, not that I can play it on here, but you get it. Similarly, I think if you used any number of songs off of the Ryan Adams album Gold, you could make a phenomenal soundtrack. In particular, if they used Nobody Girl during the Safi Nightmare timeline collapsing shit, this may have been the greatest game of all time. Granted, it is 9 minutes long and it's more rock than not. The sheer power of the lyrics playing after that whole scene would be absolutely gorgeous, albeit it would be incredibly on the nose, but who cares? It would be so insanely crazy, and the sheer power would be undeniable. But on a more realistic level, if you had one of the reflection moments like the one at the start of Chapter 4 and you just dropped La Cienega Just Smiled, I think I'd have dropped dead because it would be a deeper cut for this series to use, and I'd honestly welcome it with open arms. In all honesty, you could use pretty much anything from Gold in this game, and there's a way to make it work. Just go and listen to that album. It's so good. I want to end this segment out soon, so let's talk about a song that would have made an incredible ending track. I, of course, am referring to glamorous indie rock and roll, the not-so-secret track on The Killers' 2004 debut album, Hot Fuss. Now, I'm well aware that this song was made sarcastically, specifically to mock the people who thought they were indie rather than the big alt-rock band they were on their way to becoming, but the feeling of the whole album, and really their whole discography, is indie. But that's a different conversation for a different day. So to our point here, I think the idea of closing out on Max talking to everyone in the Turtle, giving this inspiring-ass speech with this in the background, would make something really compelling. This scene also marks a big shift for Max's character, but this song would really make it feel even more triumphant. Like Max has finally got exactly what she needs, that thing that's in her soul and all that jazz. I'm going to talk more about Max's character arc in this later, so stay tuned for that. But for now, I think I'm going to call it curtains on the music section. Go out and check out the songs and albums I mentioned in here. I promise you'll have a good time with them. And with that, let the curtains fall. I want to say that I don't say things in these essays with the intention of pissing people off. I've never been about making inflammatory statements, but the thing about content is that once it's out, you can't control how people are going to feel about it. For example, I've never seen my analysis of Chloe as something designed to make people mad, even though I know it does inevitably piss some people off because that's the nature of criticizing something people hold on a high pedestal. You cannot criticize anything people hold near and dear to their heart without saying something that will make some of them absolutely livid. This said, I want you to be aware that the following segments are going to be discussing some issues that have been raised based on my observations of the Life is Strange fandom. I'm not here to make any blanket statements, nor does what I'm going to be talking about apply to the vast majority of people who play these games. I am here to talk about a more toxic side of this franchise's discourse because I feel like not enough people talk about it, and I can't let this slide in good conscience. Above all else though, I need you to know that this is not meant to be inflammatory. This is meant to be a discussion based on my observations, for better or worse. Now, with that disclaimer out of the way, let's get down to business and talk about the myriad of problems that have been presented to me on a silver platter. Most of the comments I saw the day the game got announced were people bitching that Max was in the game without a mention of Chloe. Now I get it. A lot of people have an attachment to the series' biggest problem, and that's well within their rights, even though they're wrong. The problem is that on almost every social media platform under the sun in the months leading up to the launch of this game was the biggest conversation, even garnering attention from people involved in the game. The fact that this has been the conversation that has completely overshadowed anything else coming from this game sucks more than anything that has ever sucked before. Most of the fandom that discusses the series online, from my observation, tends to present me with the fact that they don't see Max as a character. They see Max as an accessory to Chloe and nothing more. It's incredibly disheartening to see that people just disregard Max to get to the far less interesting character that is Chloe. Full disclosure, I did my due diligence as a critic and avoided everything to do with this game outside of the original announcement trailer. This was because I needed to keep a fully unbiased mind so that when I played the game and talked about it here, you'd be getting my thoughts and my thoughts alone. However, I did examine the comments on this trailer the day it came out. I did find out about it like an hour late, but that's besides the point. When you know it, most of the comments were people asking about where Chloe was. Any celebration that the best and most interesting character was making the greatest comeback in the series' history was null and void over people wanting her abuser back. And I'll admit it, the games themselves end up acknowledging Chloe far more than Max, and I really don't love this trend. I can give this game a slight pass with bringing Chloe up, given that this is a direct sequel to the original, but I give it far less of a pass than in the other games. Now, Chloe being mentioned in LIS2 does make sense, given she's only mentioned by David Madsen, and I guess she was friends with Steph, so the mention in Wavelengths makes sense, but I just don't like how much she gets mentioned. This game, though, I will say, did something so deeply incredible, and you already know about it because I mentioned it in the story section. The way this narrative sidestepped Chloe early on is unironically brilliant. I love that you have two choices. She's dead, or y'all gotta divorce. The online reaction to this has been divisive, to say the least, and I think it shouldn't be that divisive because it's the best way they could have handled this. Getting Chloe out of the narrative really makes it abundantly clear that this is Max's story, which is so great. I'm tired of people only treating Max like an accessory to the emotionally abusive piece of shit character that way too many people love. What I think about more though is that this game's existence gives me hope that maybe people will change. Maybe people will realize that Max is her own character outside of Chloe. I don't love how much Chloe gets mentioned in this game, but this was definitely Max's show, and I feel great about it. All I can hope is that people start to see Max as her own character that's far more compelling now, and I hope that the fans can see this now. That's been a really fun thing to see, because I've seen a lot of people say that the writers ruined Max's character when that couldn't be further from the truth. Max has never been better, never been more free, and the people who complain about this are the same people that are really vocal about Chloe not being in here. It's a problem that leads into a much bigger problem I want to talk about, and it's a problem that I think is weirdly ironic for this series to have, but that's for a little bit. For now, I want to say that with time, I hope people can understand and appreciate that Max is a character separate from Chloe. Maybe I'm making a mountain out of nothing, but I've seen this for far too long for me to not comment on it. See, all of the essays I do are kind of through a layer of separation. The little guy that you're familiar with seeing in every one of these videos is a character and is the face of this channel. And don't get me wrong, little guy is gonna continue to be the face of the channel, but he's still a character, just as much as the editorial text on screen is its own character. But this upcoming point is gonna be a bit different. This is gonna be told more from the perspective of the man behind the ham, so to speak. I want this to be clear. My goal is always to include my exact thoughts as I think them in every essay I do, and this is a goal I'd never compromise on. But this point in particular is one where I just don't know if I can be that vulnerable to an audience. I'm gonna try my best to include as much of it as I can in the final cut, but I need you to respect my choices if the full point doesn't make it in, and I need you to understand this in case this segment just abruptly ends, okay? Cool. Thank you. The most viscerally upsetting thing to me about the lead up to this game, and in my observations of the community during the time I've been observing it, is this. The amount of people that ignore and erase the fact that Max Caulfield has always been a bisexual character is deeply sickening and viscerally upsetting. I've seen so many comments and posts online that just ignore this fact about Max because it doesn't fit their warped view of the character. And in my experience, the people who tend to engage in this kind of behavior are the ones who love Chloe. The official Life is Strange Instagram account reposted some fan art of Max and Chloe during Pride Month, and the artist chose to use the lesbian flag to be draped over them. And the problem started because in the comments, people were willfully ignoring that Max is bi and claiming that she's a lesbian. And this doesn't just apply to Max only. I see this kind of shit about Alex too, albeit on a much lower scale because no one talks about Alex except for maybe like 3 people, hence smaller scale, right? I don't acknowledge any of the content outside of the games as canon because the series indeed has 2 runs of comics, one that follows Max and one that follows Alex. Also, there's a full spin-off novel that follows Alex. I don't know. I don't care. I don't consider them canon, which means I have minimal engagement with them. But from my knowledge, they do tend to appeal to their core demographic and only use the gay love interests because that's what sells. I don't really foresee these things mentioning that either Alex or Max are explicitly and canonically bisexual, but just given how people talk about the series and with my limited faith in anyone who isn't writing the games, I wouldn't be surprised if they just erased the facts for what sells better. Tangents aside, That specific post wasn't the only time I witnessed this shitty behavior. It doesn't take much scrolling to find out that the overwhelming amount of posts featuring Max always put her secondary to Chloe, even on the official Life is Strange Instagram account and stuff. They really just want to talk about Chloe, and I get it to some degree. They know their target audience is 15 to 28-year-old lesbians looking to affirm themselves through the medium of video games. So of course most of the posts are going to target that demo, but the way they'll so conveniently use art and make comments that do their best to sweep bisexuality under the rug sucks. And the comment section always seems to back this up, at least when the post first goes up and the core, real fan base shows their true colors. Maybe the most egregious comment I saw was someone asking if Max is bi, and pretty much every person responding with things to the effect of, she's only bi if the player chooses, which is blatantly incorrect on so many levels. In the first episode of the first game, in any version of it that you play, during the opening sequence when you walk down the hallway, take a look at Trevor, a skater boy who infamously gets neutered by a skateboard if you're trying to get every collectible photo in the game, and guess what Max says? She talks about how she likes skater boys and wishes they liked her. Sure, this could be read as more of a platonic thing, but the word choice and delivery would indicate otherwise. Later on in episode 2, if you help Warren with his science experiment and take the picture of him, regardless of all prior interactions, Max comments that he's pretty cute when he's in full-on geek mode. And neither of these thoughts are based on direct player input. They are the thoughts of Max herself, hence pretty convincing evidence that backs up what most people already know to be true. Now, some will argue that through the same logic I used, that since the game never explicitly states that she's bisexual, she can be whatever the player wants her to be, right? Nope. The first game always gives you the choice to romance either Warren, Chloe, both, or neither, regardless of how you play the game, thus making Max canonically bi. And let's look at this game. Oh, what's this? Vin, Amanda, both, or none, and you can romance either of them regardless of how you play the game? Wow. Who would have thought the bisexual character that's always been bi is still bi? The other level of that statement is just an incredibly reductive view that being bi is a choice, and let me make this abundantly clear. It is not a choice. It is a characteristic you have no control over, and it is something to be accepted. Back to the observations. I'll come clean and say I've never used Twitter personally, and I never will. But thanks to some trusted friends who unfortunately have an account for that hell site, I've heard the horror stories about what's been going on over there, and oh boy, what a doozy it is. See, if I thought my observations of the Instagram community were rough, Twitter is apparently that shit on steroids. The sheer amount of people that like to gloss over Max really hurts. She's always been the most neglected of the protagonists, and anytime she gets acknowledged, it's because of Chloe and never on her own merits. I mean, when this game got announced, the first thing people started asking was, where's Chloe? Because the trailer didn't mention her in the slightest, and it kills me inside because of how much Max means to me as a character. It was honestly so disheartening to see that when the first 2 chapters of Double Exposure came out for those who pre-ordered, people got really pissy that Chloe was nowhere to be found, when in reality, that's the best thing they could have done. Get that piece of shit out of the franchise and don't let her ass back in, alright? I think it's really telling that people got so mad at this story being about Max without Chloe that they called it a disaster or a bad game. In reality, this game is fantastic precisely because it follows the best character this series has ever produced. Max Caulfield has been, and forever will be, one of the most important characters in all of fiction to me on many levels. In some regard, she's the first time I could ever point to a character on screen and say, that's me. I know the usual characters guys my age would say are the ones you would expect. You know, Patrick Bateman, Tyler Durden, the Joker, Batman, Rorschach from Watchmen, Dr. Manhattan, Walter White, Tony Soprano, Jesse Pinkman, etc., etc., etc. But me? Nope. It's simply just a shy, dweeby, bisexual photography nerd, and ordinarily, this is where I'd say this says nothing about me. But here I'm gonna say that it's none of your fucking business. The point being, Max has always meant a lot to me personally, and seeing myself so clearly and accurately represented on screen means so much to me. That original game, in part because of Max, is why I started writing these essays in the first place. So you know what? Yeah, I am going to be mad that people gloss over the best character in the series for one of the worst. I'm going to get mad that one of the best examples of bi-representation gets constantly and consistently ignored and mislabeled. I'm going to get mad about it, and these active aggressions will not stand. The willful ignorance people display while talking about this character is upsetting to say the least, but more than that, it's incredibly hurtful. I'm not trying to make a political statement, but bi-erasure is a serious problem, even in something as ultimately insignificant as a video game. I know, I'm rambling and bitching, but man, I gotta complain about it because this is a genuine problem that I never see get addressed in any capacity. People let this toxicity fester, and I can't sit idly by in good consciousness. I'm sure I'm just talking into the abyss and no one's hearing this. But if I can inspire even one person to change their behavior, then I'll have done something good, and this impassioned rant will have meant something. So here's something interesting, right? In my video on Life is Strange 2, I spent a segment talking about my problems with people not understanding how to objectively rate something based on its actual merits and qualities, and boy of boy, did I manage to predict some things about this game. Before the game was even out, people were just trashing this game. When chapters 1 and 2 came out, early people were dunking on it, and I'm sure that people are gonna keep dunking on it from now till oblivion, but this does raise an interesting point. Just because everyone can be a critic doesn't mean they should. Criticism, reviewing, and analyzing is an art. And while art is something anyone can make, to make good art, you have to learn and put in the effort. The reason why people remember the name Roger Ebert isn't because he was good at criticizing and reviewing, but because he was entertaining and informative. I feel like so many people get hung up on the entertaining part or the informative part, and there's gotta be a balance. I mean, I may not be the most qualified to talk about this, but I make an effort to balance things out because it makes it more accessible. The biggest problem with academic writing is that it's so inaccessible because it's just information delivered in the most droll way possible. The problem with a review that tries too hard to just be entertaining runs the problem of getting really annoying really fast because it's trying too hard to make you laugh. A good review strikes the balance between info and entertainment, like a good photo finds the balance in chiaroscuro and the perfect color balance to get the tone of the image across better. And it's a skill you have to work at. As an unprofessional dipshit or whatever the hell my channel description says I am, I try my damnedest to make sure that I find that balance. Sometimes I lean a little too hard in one direction or the other, and I can admit that. But my favorite essays I've done are the ones where I feel like I've struck the balance the best out of that. 3 essays that have been publicly released that come to mind almost immediately are my videos on Life is Strange True Colors, and of course, Lollipop Chainsaw. I hold those 3 in very high regard because I think I struck the perfect balance of pseudo-academic bullshit and made something both entertaining and something with worthwhile critiques and points raised. I'll say this though, as a creative and as an artist of sorts, I know when I mess up on a point, I know that I can be wrong, and I know that at the end of the day, it's all just my own opinions that I'm speaking into the void and desperately hoping someone will hear me. I would never preach my opinions as gospel, and you, the viewer, shouldn't take it as such. Never let anyone form your opinions on something for you, and that includes anyone and everyone you can think of, because no one is going to experience something the same way you do. That's the beauty of criticism being an art, and that's why anyone can be a critic. But to truly be an artist,
I miss you.
You have to know the tools of the trade, and that's articulation. I don't want to discourage anyone from making an analytical review essay of their own, but the inherent problem is that so many people don't really know how to articulate why something is good or bad. You're entitled to your opinion, but you really should be able to explain why you think what you do when someone asks. I mean, that's why everything I make is just an explanation for why I think something is good or bad, and why you may or may not be interested in experiencing the subject for yourself. The problem is, so many people don't get that. And in your everyday life, you don't need to articulate why you think everything you do. But when it comes to engaging with something critically, and yes, talking shit is in fact engaging critically with something, you have to be able to explain. And I find that many just can't explain themselves well. But that's all too abstract, right? And too non-specific. Let's rein it in a bit, yeah? Back to the series at hand. I was expecting the reaction to this game to be polarizing to say the least. Lo and behold, I sure was correct in my assessment because a lot of people are pissed about this game. And even more to the point, a lot of people's problems are personal issues like Chloe not being here. People saying that they ruined Max's characters because no Chloe. People saying that the writing is bad because the plot had a lot of twists and by proxy was hard to predict. And all the usual shit. I touched on a similar idea in my essay on Lollipop Chainsaw when I talked about how reading reviews from the time had me asking, did we even play the same game? With every word. And here I still feel the same because a lot of people don't take the time to truly experience the game and just go off on preconceived notions all while getting mad when the game doesn't match what's in their head, no matter how well written it is. Of course, their opinions are their opinions. But again, articulation is key to making a review worth something. Don't just say a game's writing is bad, provide evidence to support your claim. And there I go sounding like an English teacher again. When it comes to your opinions on media, being able to articulate why you think what you think about something is a lot more helpful and productive for everyone. Don't just say the game sucks. Explain it sucks because the writers fundamentally failed to make the character function in the narrative. Don't say the game is good because it's got good characters. Tell me the specifics. Give me details. Articulation helps people understand that the game is good or bad for a reason that you can actually elaborate on rather than just saying it sucks because you didn't like it. Tell me why you didn't like it. I'm interested to know what you think of the media you consume. I want the details because it's far more interesting, just like art. Reviewing is an art, and I believe that anybody can be an artist if they truly care and truly bother to learn the craft. And the same applies to reviewing things. Take a crack at it. You'll be surprised at how much more you'll start to enjoy things. Or something. What do I know? This concludes the Glazed Ham Complains About Shitty Online Behavior segment. You may now return to your regularly scheduled programming of hearing Glazed Ham talk about the game itself specifically. I hope you understand why that set of segments was important enough to break the flow of the standard structure. Okay, now keep watching, please. Thank you. Before I talk about Max, I want to talk about Safi, and I intentionally gave her her own segment because I've got a point that might be more interesting to me than the character herself. To be blunt, Safi is a Chloe type, except she's aware enough to be evil and awful consciously, which is far more interesting than Chloe ever was. I mean, Safi shoots her own mom in front of Max and expects Max to side with her in the end. No reasonable person should side with Safi here. She's just evil. Yasmin may not have been the best mom ever, and she's definitely done some questionable things out of a misguided belief that she was protecting her daughter, but I'm gonna be real with you. I don't think she deserved it. Granted, Yasmin survives the shot, but this still doesn't justify Safi's actions, especially considering that some therapy sessions and open communication would absolutely have solved at least 65% of their problems, you know? If they just talked things out like normal people instead of Safi's series of absolutely psychotic choices, this could have been a perfectly fine thing, which would have been horrifically uninteresting as a game, but it's whatever, right? Setting aside the evilness for a sec, Safi is really just Chloe again. The similarities here are very intentional, and I absolutely see the parallels. I mean, Maya and Safi are just Rachel and Chloe again. Maybe minus the star-crossed lovers aspect, but the impact they had on each other is noticeably important to this narrative. Safi in particular is very self-serving, in a way that's eerily reminiscent of Chloe using everything at her disposal to do some heinous shit. And on an emotional and psychological level, they're operating on the same frequency of rage at the world resulting from problems they had a hand in causing. I mean, Safi blames everyone for what happened to Maya and doesn't really consider that she played a pretty big part in covering that up too. She doesn't acknowledge the self-inflicted problems she's caused, and that's intentional. She, just like Chloe before her, takes advantage of Max's kindness and friendship for her own gain when she realizes that Max could be useful. I mean, it's very pointed that Safi's immediate reaction to finding out about Max's rewind was almost word for word what Chloe said when she found out. And it's far too specific of a line to be a coincidence. But this is where Safi diverges from the Chloe formula, because she's Chloe 2.0, which means instead of dancing around the lack of morals this character has, they just went all in on making her evil, which is weirdly a good thing for the narrative. But let's establish why before opening that can of worms. The reveal that Safi was behind a lot of the weird bullshit going on is really interesting, and really complicates the character, but her motivation and reasoning behind everything is strange to say the least. Most of the mystery turns out to be a result of Safi's revenge quest, and the shape-shifting power really helps facilitate this and gives the game a lot of cool images like the doppelganger Max stuff mentioned in the story section, but it's the principle of the revenge quest that makes her interesting. She's interested in trying to right the wrongs done against her and Maya, but she does it in the sloppiest way possible, in a way that causes the most collateral damage you could possibly imagine as a result. Like, her plan to get at Lucas is deeply fucked up. She tries to turn his son against him because she knows it would hurt him a lot, but she fails to realize that this is gonna screw up that innocent kid for life. I understand wanting to take Lucas down for being a filthy plagiarist, but why would you ever go about it in a way that harms more people than necessary? I mean, Safi of all people should know how having your father forced out of your life messes you up inside. So why would she willingly inflict that on a kid who just wants to do karate and shit? I know she says it's because it's the fastest way to inflict as much damage on Lucas as possible, but again, that's such an awful thing to do to a child who's done nothing wrong. Now, I can excuse the expose during the roast because plagiarism is an offense punishable by death, but the other stuff is a bit too far. Moving on, what she does to Gwen is, while not as insane as what she does to Lucas, is still catastrophically career-ending and not that justifiable. Safi gets Gwen fired for allegedly dealing drugs to students, and that's a permanent record thing. Like, I'm pretty sure that gets your teaching license revoked and ruins your chances at getting a lot of jobs in the future. Oh my god. Sorry, it's currently 4:04 a.m. as I'm recording this, and I've been going straight on all of this. So let's just take this line, and I'm gonna finish this out. There's not much more for me to cover in this session, so I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna finish it. Anyway, and all of this because she canceled your book deal is a little extreme, I won't lie. I know publishing deals are hard to come by, but there's other publishers out there, Safi. This wasn't the end-all be-all. You would have been fine. And this time it's not worth ruining someone's career over. I mean, there's more to Safi, but all these things that she's done are pretty inexcusable. But the thing is, as a villain, Safi is really interesting. The fact that the writers just made her own that she's just evil is really refreshing. Chloe is evil and abusive, but the writers never made her own that fact, which means a lot of people don't see her like that. I'd like to believe that people are smart enough to see that Safi is just unapologetically evil, because it's so much more interesting and is such a cool setup for something special, and we'll touch on that at the end of the essay, and it's for a good reason. You're gonna have to trust me. Anyways, before I do that, I want to say that for as many issues as I have with Safi, she's a more interesting Chloe, and I think she's got more potential than that character ever did. And on top of that, she was used far more effectively, but I digress. And And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the obligatory section where I talk about Max. I'll tell you this, she's still the same character I fell in love with all those years ago, and I'm guessing this is one of those where I'm just delusional moments, because a metric ton of people say that writers ruined her character here, but I think they're wrong. I mean truly, Max is the same character as before, and that same old tragic hero, and I can't believe the writers pulled it off, and let me explain. It's hard to write a good continuation of a complex character, especially when it's been almost 10 years since the game that complex character came out. The reason I say that it's hard is because the moment you have to expand a character that is as fully realized as Max, she was used to the fullest extent in the original game. And while I'd always had the thought in the back of my head about what I'd write if I made a sequel game with Max in it, it'd always just been a thought experiment of mine. So imagine my surprise at this game's announcement and reveal that Max would be coming back. Now, take the surprise and then throw in a large amount of fear because I was deeply afraid of everything possibly going wrong, and everything from bringing Chloe back and overshadowing Max, to them just completely assassinating the character, to the game just being a complete disaster as a whole. I was scared. But hey, they got the original VA for Max back, which is all I could have asked for. But what I never imagined was just how much the VA would be able to recapture the magic of her original performance 10 years later. Now, a lot of this does fall in combination with the writers managing to pull off a divine miracle, because Max feels the same, down to the weird mannerisms and overall aesthetic and vibe, yet older in a way that makes sense. It's a very hard thing to pull off, but man did they do it, and do it well. But that's all more meta than I usually talk about. Let's get back to talking about the game itself specifically. Max is still that same old weirdo photographer, and it was really nice to see. She's still doing her journaling with the little doodles. She's just like the first game, and she's made a career out of photography. There's so many details about her character that fill in the world, and it's really cool. Like the photo wall still being there, her still having that computer she had in high school, and I love all of that stuff. But more importantly, I love how she still feels like that same old girl as before. That same old socially awkward dweeby photographer, awkward personality quirks, mannerisms and all. Like when she dropped Oofa Doofa after doing the timeline jump in chapter 2, or how she's still as oblivious to flirting as ever, or how she's still a science nerd and all that wacky shit. The memory box is a really nice little touch too, and it's a really small detail that helps the Hellerton house feel more lived in, at least at the start of the game. Speaking of the start of the game, one of the coolest things to me in this whole thing is a very small thing. I booted up the game, and once I got control of Max, I hit right trigger out of habit, and you know what? The game commented on it. Max thinks about how even though rewind hasn't worked in years, she still does it out of habit, and she even says old habits die hard, and I love that little detail so much. On the bigger picture things, I love all of her interactions with pretty much everyone throughout the game. Obviously, everything with Vin is a high point, and I'll talk about those in a second, but I've got to talk about some of the other moments first, just for perspective. One of my favorite recurring bits is the, "Can I ask you a weird question?" Because the responses you get tell you a lot about the characters you're interrogating, but more interestingly, how they perceive Max. For example, Moses is completely ready to answer any question you throw his way. Like during the telescope puzzle, when you're using Living World Moses to try and figure out where Dead World Moses would have hid the camera, it's got a lot of fun conversation and shows that Max is A, a weirdo, but more importantly, B, a good, trustworthy friend. More generally, Max's friendship with Moses shines through very well in all of their interactions. He's one of the first people to immediately be on your side, once you've proven your powers to him anyway, and I like their interactions, mostly because they're a lot of fun. I suppose you can summarize a lot of interactions I like as fun, like the imaginary concert sequence, or the bowling alley at the start of the game, but the core of those interactions has a lot to do with Max's dialogue or actions in that scene, which is why, albeit a very small moment, The talk with Vin is maybe my favorite interaction in the whole game, and it all comes down to one line. Now, a lot of why I love this moment is because of what came before and all of the great relationship stuff with Vin, like drinking on the job in Chapter 2's Dead World, the iconic,
Hey, Vin? Can I ask for something kind of weird?
Ooh, I don't do foot stuff.
Damn. Well, there goes my Friday night.
and the Smash Your Pass scene, all of it kind of pales in comparison to the Otherworld bowling alley scene. It's simple, but man, that one exchange with him in his full "she never loved me" crisis, and Max's very sincere response is so simple, and that works in this game's favor. Not that Max or this franchise as a whole really have ever been known for subtlety, and this moment is about as subtle as a brick going through a window, but that's neither here nor there. Past the Vin stuff, I like Max and Amanda's relationship, whether romantic or platonic, a fair bit. I think their interactions, like the bad pickup lines interaction, is great. Even the bad lines that fail to put you on the board are still really fun. Amanda as a love interest for Max, shockingly, is a massive step up for her. And this may be the most interesting point I have about Amanda, and it's that she's not Chloe. Let me explain in no uncertain terms that Chloe is a terribly written and horrendously abusive character with the emotional capacity of a brick, while Amanda is the opposite of that. Amanda, in spite of her personal flaws that are occasionally alluded to, is a predominantly healthy person and is pleasant to be around. If you remember my other essays on this series, then you might recall the part of my essay on the original Life is Strange where I talked about the choice-based video game romance dilemma, or whatever the hell it was called. One of the points I brought up then was about the romance options in LIS 2, and how it's definitely off-putting that you can only be gay in that game if you're doing a low morality route. Which is still weird, and in retrospect, a similar logic can be applied to the first game. I think it's very, dare I say, strange that in this series, the first gay love interest you could have is genuinely one of the most toxic pieces of shit you could envision. Now, I could understand if their target goal was to make an example of a toxic relationship, because for some godforsaken reason people are into that, then okay, fair game. But I don't think that was meant to be the case. Regardless of intention, the fact of the matter is that Chloe is awful, and it's weird that the first potential gay relationship in the series is deeply toxic and is juxtaposed with a potential very positive and supportive straight relationship. I'm not the only one who finds this weird, right? Thankfully, this game follows in the path that True Colors set up, and I'm glad. Max deserved better than Chloe, which was Warren, but that's neither here nor there. And the options we get in this game, in spite of their issues, are healthy options, and I'd wager that's a better thing. But who cares about that? I want to talk about some things I absolutely called, and see if my thought that Max is a tragic hero still stands now that she's gotten a second game. And a thing that I've never said in any of these now 3 essays I've done on the original game, but have always thought about, is how Max's powers are tied to death and tragedy. Think about it. Max got rewind after Chloe gets shot in the bathroom, and here, Max gets timeline jumping relatively soon after Safi got murked, which is really interesting because every character with powers, Danny Boy being the only other exception, just kinda gets powers with no death or tragedy being tied to it. Max only getting powers in relation to tragedy is fascinating for a myriad of reasons, and chief among them would be the fact that she's always in the most dire of scenarios. I mean, I don't know what sort of god or supernatural entity that exists behind the scenes in this series, but whatever it is, they want that photographer obliterated. The whole lesson of the first game, as I've always preached here, is that you can't always help everyone, and you should always try to act in a way that helps as many people as you can. Of course, there's also your actions have consequences, which is another big moral that is worth mentioning. And it's interesting to see how it's evolved in this game. I mean, look at it like this. A lot of this game is just trying to figure out what the hell happened. And when you can now just jump between realities, and the isolation that comes from being the only one with powers. Then we get the Safi reveal, and now we've got two differing perspectives on power use, which leads to some interesting things. I mean, you can draw the obvious comparison between Safi and Icarus, with Max being the Daedalus Stormbow in this equation. Safi is because she's flying too close to the sun by abusing her powers, and Max is because she's been telling Icarus that abusing your powers has consequences you can't even comprehend. And yeah, Icarus ignores her. But in all honesty, and you can say it with me this time, this is a problem for a different day. For now, though, I want to wrap this up before I keep going on any longer than I need to. I'm sorry, it's very late as I record this. 4:18 a.m., baby. Woo! I've been in here since 1. Anyway, to end out my long and scattered thoughts on Max in this game, I want to reiterate how glad I am to see this character back in her own narrative. The lasting impact the first game had on her is present, and from a characterization perspective, I love it. It's so easy for a sequel to just forget about the original game, which is what a lot of people have said happened with this game. But to be frank, those people didn't get far enough to actually make that judgment. I was honestly getting kinda sick of all the flashback voiceovers that were happening in the first chapter of the game, and I didn't mention them during the story section, but they were there. Oh, trust me, they were there. I was sick of them mostly because it felt like they were using it as a crutch to support the early game. Thankfully, they took off the training wheels pretty fast because they realized what they had was strong enough to stand on its own, and they relegated these callbacks to mostly background things. The Pisshead CD is one of my favorite details in the game, maybe second only to
George Orwell's book.
1974. Yes, that's a thing in this game. It's very funny. I love that cover. Anyway, the easy-to-miss callback about collecting bottles in the bowling alley is great, and the memory box plus photo wall are nice sentimental background touches, but the crown jewel has to be the nightmare sequence. I mean, they pulled off reusing the bathroom scene brilliantly, and I appreciate that they didn't ignore the deeply traumatic shit they put Max through, because it really would have been easy to just wipe the slate clean, and props to them for managing to keep the spirit of the character almost a decade later. Where would I be if I didn't have to update some thoughts on the series as a whole now with a new installment? I mean, at the very least, I've got to update the Kiss the Girl rankings since there's 2 new ones for me to talk about, but I'd also like to talk about some other random shit, given that this is in fact a direct sequel to the original game. Let me get this out of the way first. The brief mention of Warren and him getting absolutely disrespected into oblivion hurt me. It hurt me a lot. I remember sending a friend of mine a message that simply read, "I'm in fucking shambles," followed by the video of Jesse crying, and a follow-up message to give context because I'm not trying to make people more concerned about me than they need to be, but I was indeed in shambles. I was mentally prepared for him to get ignored and not get mentioned. It would have sucked, but I would have carried on. I, however, was not prepared for the sheer injustice they'd do to him. I get the idea, like Warren is just a what's-her-name to Max now, but come on, Doc. You'll keep a photo of Chloe around, but you made it a point to burn all of the photographs of Warren? And I get it. She went away, he took a different path. I remember the face, but I can't recall the name, etc., etc. Even still, though, I can't help but wonder how what's-his-name has been. I understand why he's not here. It'd piss people off even more than they already are about this game if Warren appeared but Chloe didn't. So they played the right card, but it doesn't dull the pain. Don't get me wrong, Vin is great, but Warren truly is the best of them, even if it's only in my heart. Anyways, I should at least talk about this game as a direct sequel to the original at some point, because I feel like I haven't, and what better place to talk about that than in a segment about being stuck in the past. As a direct sequel to the original game, it's best described through a Cure comparison. Life is Strange Double Exposure is the wish to Life is Strange's Disintegration. Disintegration is The Cure's 1989 magnum opus. It is one of, if not the greatest albums of all time, just as the original Life is Strange is likely the greatest Strange-type game. And this game is like Wish, the next studio album The Cure released in 1992, which is very good and as close to a masterpiece as you can get, but it's not on the same level. For a film comparison that maybe works a bit better, this is like Basket Case versus Basket Case 2. Basket Case 2 may have a returning main characters from the first one, but it's so radically different by comparison to its predecessor, which applies to this game kinda well. It builds off into its own story while kind of picking and choosing what to implement from the first one, and I think that was for the best. I may have genuinely hated this game if Chloe was in it, because there is nowhere else for that miserable creature to go as a character. She served her role, so let her go. I'm sure I could come up with more comparison stuff, but can we get to the stuff I really want to talk about? Those recurring bits and a whole bunch of lists I now have to update. Wait, why am I asking for permission? Let's just do it. I mean, it's 4:25 a.m. I don't care. Let's go! For as self-indulgent as I've been with this essay, I'm gonna show some restraint and not re-explain every Kiss the Girl moment from the other games, because I already covered those in one of the other videos I did on this series, so I'm just gonna slot the two new ones into the list and explain why they're there, okay? Actually, one last thing before I get into that, I should probably give you a little refresher on what the original list was before this game came out, just so you have a frame of reference for what's going to happen next. And this is in order from worst to best, as I say this. Number 7, Chloe. Number 6, Finn. Number 5, Steph. Number 4, Rachel. Number 3, Warren. Number 2, Cassidy. And number 1, Ryan. Now, we've got 2 more characters to insert, which means we've got a grand total of 9. And I'm going to tell you that new list goes a little something like this. At number 9, Chloe, because it literally couldn't have been anyone else. Number 8, still Finn. Number 7 is going to be Steph. And now is where the hard part begins. Numbers 1, 2, and 3 are still Ryan, Cassidy, and Warren. And I'm certain of that. But the problem comes down to Rachel. I can confidently say that both moments from this game are better than Steph, but not better than Warren, which means what side of Rachel are they going on? It's a hard thing to judge because both of the Kiss the Girl moments in this are very quaint feeling in terms of scope, which I love and is why I rate Warren higher than Rachel. But Rachel has that cinematography and mise-en-scène that I adore and am very torn. I'm mostly deciding on where to put Vin because Amanda goes one spot lower than Vin because I like him more and I think his moment is just better overall, but I do like both of these moments. I could debate this all day, but I don't have that kind of time, so I'm gonna have to call it as no one else can call it for me. And my heart tells me that the new order is 9, Chloe, 8, Finn, 7, Steph, 6, Rachel, 5, Amanda, 4, Vin, 3, Warren, 2, Cassidy, and 1, Ryan. And I'm committing to this. So let's break down our new number 4 and 5 and see why I'm putting them where I am and where they fall on the tier list. Amanda's Kiss the Girl moment is unique for the series because of the tone and setup. See, this moment starts kind of silly with the imaginary concert, but then gets a little serious when you explain a little bit about what's been going on lately. Most KTG moments before this game are more fun than not, with a certain sentimentality and silly tone to them that I adore. But this one has something interesting, like some little twinges of sorrow to them that I kinda like. Because if you haven't gathered that most of my favorite things are very melancholic by now, I can't help you. Now, I like a lot of what this scene has going for it, and as such, I'm gonna put it above Rachel, so low A tier. I rate Vin's moment higher mostly based on the setup, and I think it's interesting how his moment is the opposite of Amanda's, in that his scene starts serious and gets silly. I mean, bro is absolutely going through it before you join him, and him eviscerating the vibe almost immediately hits close to home, and I love it. He's kind of a morose little sad bastard, and I appreciate that, just because none of the other boys in this series are like that. But whatever, set the character aside for the actual moment itself. The Smasher Pass setup is very fun, and I almost derailed the story section to do a full Smasher Pass of every adult character in the series, but I didn't. I have self-restraint. Hey, wait a minute, I said that earlier, didn't I? Now, the Smasher Pass was a fun setup. All the responses were very fun and in character on both sides, and the setup for Vin asking about himself was cute, and Max's little
Whatever, I'm drunk.
before going for it is absolutely adorable. It's very silly, and I kinda love it for that, which is why I rate it so highly. It's not better than Warren's iconic drive elevator scene ass kiss the girl moment, so it's a low A tier again. I think it's high A tier, sorry, I don't know why I wrote low. But above Amanda, so now you can enjoy the brand new tier list that goes a little something like this. In F tier, it's Chloe, as God intended. Then moving up a spot, we got Finn in the bottom of D tier, quickly followed by Steph at the top of D tier. Then we got a big old jump to the bottom of A tier with Rachel, with Amanda above her and Vin rounding out the tier at the top. Past that, we've got our two S tiers, those being Warren at the bottom and Cassidy at the top. And of course, my dearly beloved S plus tier, the best scene in the series that you're already sick of me talking about, it's Ryan. He's the GOAT, like straight up. Take a lot for a new game to top this character because he's so great. We love Ryan in this house, and if you don't, I don't know, leave a comment on why I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm a fool and why Warren or Cassidy should be number one. I'm not unreasonable. I'll hear you out on most things if you've got a thoughtful argument to back it up. If you have a thoughtful argument to back it up, that is. Anyways, who cares about that? Let's get through my last few living in the past points to finalize my course requests and end this monster of an essay, yeah? This game as a whole fits pretty nicely into the overall canon, but I do really want to reiterate that the callbacks, specifically the use of Chloe voiceovers early on in the game, were a bit overdone at times. This point does need repeating because it really detracts from the quality of the first couple of chapters. I said it earlier, but I'll say it again here. It feels like they were using it as a crutch, like they weren't confident enough in their own new stuff to let it stand on its own. I wish they used it a bit more sparingly because the new stuff they made is fantastic, and don't worry, the irony of what I'm about to say next isn't lost on me. But I wish they weren't so concerned with the past and would just let these images and objects speak for themselves. I know you don't want people to miss these things that shade in Max's character, but come on, let the environment tell the story and not Chloe. Just to reiterate, the irony of me repeating all of this while complaining about the game repeating points from the past is not lost on me, and you might even say it's intentional to the narrative I've been crafting for you today. Or maybe it wouldn't. I can't read minds. So given that this is getting a direct sequel, I guess I should talk about what comes next. Not that I have any confirmed info, so consider this being more like a things I want to see in the sequel and my predictions for what's coming next, whether reasonable or not. When the next game comes out and I'm inevitably wrong about everything, go ahead and leave a comment about how this section aged like milk. Or, if I'm right, a comment about how I'm a genius and they should hire me to rewrite Before the Storm from the ground up so it can actually be a good game and not the dumpster fire that it is. Sorry, where was I? Oh yeah, predicting the future and shit. I'm gonna bet you that Max is gonna get Rewind back. Just given that the timelines combined themselves and that power seemingly disappeared by the end of the game, either that or we're going to go off the deep end and we're going to get Max with the ability to go to the future in a fast forward the opposite of rewind, where you could go forward in time for a limited bit, almost like in Batman the Telltale series, where you can visualize the takedowns you're about to do. It's got potential, but more likely than not, they're going to fall back on old reliable rewind. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I'll be surprised if they go for something new again, especially since it would be harder to justify Max getting a third power. Past that, I'm going to make another contradictory prediction because I'm scared of what comes next. Best case scenario, they integrate the choice data from double exposure directly, and you can keep going on from that universe. Worst case scenario, they only integrate the choices made by the majority, and I cry about it for way too many pages when I inevitably cover that game. All of which is a really long-winded way of setting up that I really hope they let you go down the relationship path you started here, because either way you go, I want more from Vin and Amanda. And I'm hoping neither of them get sidestepped next time around. Of course, I'd gladly drop either of them for Warren. Hell, even just a chance at getting my boy back would be fantastic, but I know it'll never happen. Although, it may not be over yet. At the end of the game, when Moses asks if Max would ever go back to Arcadia Bay, she says someday. What this essentially means is, there's still Jope! It's not Jover yet! It's not Jover yet, bitches! Bring him back! We're going all the way to the Super Bowl! Yeah! Whoa, hey, sorry. What's happening? I got a little carried away. My apologies. Back to the predictions as God intended, I'm gonna say the next game is gonna expand on the themes around Safi. The next game is gonna predominantly be about Safi's world domination plans, which involve collecting and manipulating as many other people with powers as she can find, which is why there was that post-credits scene where she seemingly recruited diamonds to her cause. Of course, I would also wager that Safi's powers are going to cause her downfall, because she'll never learn that her actions have consequences, which leads to Max having to make a choice of redeeming her, or letting her suffer. It'll be some real tear-jerking shit about friendship in Max's eyes, or maybe this is the moment she'll finally pull her life together and stop getting into friendships with manipulative dickbags. I mean, they never do that, right? But a boy can dream. Can I talk about the music? Have I talked about it too much, or can I go on about it again? Well, since this is an essay that can't hear you respond, I'm going to talk about the music anyway, and don't worry, this will be brief. I want the glamorous 2000s indie rock and roll back, and I would be so delighted if they brought back To All of You and only that. I mean, I'd love it if they'd reuse some classics, maybe even branch into some older stuff, and even branch into some more mainstream stuff. I think they could probably get away with using The Cure, and I'd be more than willing to set aside the issues that would come from Max going away from that indie shit. It's just that it would kind of go hard, and okay, you got me. It's just wish fulfillment at this point. But I mean, hear me out, right? It'd be a lot less insane than LIS2 dropping DANCE by Justice, or LISTC using Creep. And while it would be cliche as all hell, if they just hard-dropped Pictures of You, I'd probably have an aneurysm, because it would fit Max's aesthetic perfectly, but whatever, right? I'd love to sit around and keep predicting some of the more outlandish things that could happen, like the sequel giving Max this multiversal time travel with 5-dimensional chess kind of power, or any of that shit. But I'm not really much for theorizing, despite me growing up on old school game theory. I also don't have too awful much of an interest in doing that kind of stuff. I live for analyzing and criticizing media, so I'll quit while I'm ahead. That, and I really want to finish this thing out because I need to get it done, dusted, and out to the public as soon as possible. I mean, as I'm recording this, it is currently 4:41 a.m., and I've been recording since about like 1:08 a.m. I've been in this booth for way too long, and I'm starting to lose it. So, I'm gonna get this thing done. Don't worry, you're gonna get it. Not that I haven't loved writing and recording and making this. I have. But I've just got a lot of things to do outside of this, and blah blah blah, boring life shit that doesn't matter, right? We're here to have fun, and I'd say we did, while also covering some pretty solid ground. So let's wrap this session up, and I'll see you next week when you've got your next appointment, alrighty? Cool. This will be $35,000, and here's your prescription for Prozac. And there you have it, everyone. A brand new Life is Strange game talked about, and I'm finally back on top of things with the series. I really think I covered a lot of ground, and this was a really good essay for me, and it might even be one of my favorites, but who knows. That's something that'll come with time. And speaking of coming with time, while my thoughts on this game may change as time sweeps forward and more games come out, I think that this game may be one of the best in the series. It didn't manage to dethrone the original, and it's not as perfect as True Colors, but as a whole, this is a really solid third place in the context of ranking the games. I love that they brought back Max so much, and I love that Chloe is gone even more because it's forcing more people to realize that Max was the more interesting character to begin with. Of course, this game has its issues, same as any other modern game. There were a couple of times where some props glitched out so they were floating instead of being in an NPC's hands. Sometimes you could cancel dialogue if you paused at the wrong time, and some other things like that. But it was mostly minute shit that I didn't even notice. This game is so goddamn gorgeous, and I can't say it enough. It all just looks so good, from the environments to the buildings to the characters. It all looks better than any of these games have ever looked before. I do hate to bring this up at the end, but I at least want to acknowledge the fairly common complaint that locations you visit are too limited and repeat a lot. And to that I say, have you ever been on a small college campus? You're going between the same few places every day. Like, there are buildings on my campus that I rarely step foot in because it's not a part of my daily path. Would I have liked to have seen more of Caledon? Yeah, but it's not a deal breaker. Anyway, I think so much of this game is good, and some of it is even bordering on perfect. As a whole, it's a very solid game and a very solid entry in the franchise, which means I'm giving this my final rating of 8 out of 10. This game is very good, but it doesn't quite reach the same highs as some of what came before. Again, it's like the difference between Disintegration and Wish. Both are very good, but only one of them is the greatest album ever made, and that's Disintegration. Now, with all of that said and done, my name is A Leg of Glazed Ham, and thank you so much for watching this. It always means a lot. But this one especially means a lot. I really liked writing this one. I feel like I covered some important ground in the segment where I addressed some things I would never ordinarily talk about. Don't expect that stuff from me all the time, but sometimes it's worth talking about, you know? If you made it this far, thank you. This has been a substantial part of your day if you've watched this all in one sitting. So please leave a comment with your thoughts on this game or essay. Subscribe if you're so inclined. Like the video. I'd be very appreciative if you did. But that's enough out of me. Go have some fun. And as always, thanks again, and good night.
I'm serious. I will write you an essay.